helped.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It just looks like.
Ooh.
Science.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Science.
Seth. That's why Seth is a millionaire.
Yeah. Didn't teach 4th grade for nothing. Kind of things. Well, folks, if you were listening to the last show with Tim Roberts, we were randomly picking up, what is it, 99.5?
0.1? Maybe.
99.1.
It's been a while.
Shout out to 99.1. You got some strong,
Can we pick the radio station?
broadcasting antennas there. They're flying through our bones. What was it? We weren't even talking. I don't know if we recorded this part of the podcast, but when he first came in, we were talking about Bluetooth technology and how it's cooking our brains.
Yeah, we're all getting cancer.
Getting cancer from somewhere. But I was saying that you know,
like Bluetooth or this coffee.
Because when they talk about you know, that amount of radiation, I said, like, if it's radiation that you're worried about, you know, you get more radiation just by being out in the sun, because it's not like your eardrums are getting burned from out of radiation coming out of the Bluetooth, but you sit out in the sun, especially us pasty folks, sit out there, you get scorched.
I'm like the poster boy for Elmer's Glue.
That's what you use. Adam, good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
How's that coffee?
It's coffee.
I made it for him.
It'll keep me awake.
I made it as good as I could, anyway. But yeah. And that you were mentioning that for the folks that are not in Winston, there was a fertilizer plant that caught on fire last night. Did you know about that right when it happened?
No, I saw it this morning when I woke up.
Okay.
And I was like, man, I'm glad I'm not in that world anymore.
You used to be firefighter for how many years?
13.
Ooh, lucky 13.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm out. Peace. Is this going to pick up my smoker's laugh?
It has to. That's the main reason we got you on here.
Gotcha. Everybody's like, he needs to get checked.
Do you think that's what it's from? From firefighting?
No, it's been that way since I was a kid. So. Actually, I remember as a kid, you know how they would bring like the smoke
You come out and like, that 4-year-old has been smoking.
He's got a serious problem. But you know how they'd bring the smoke, like the fire department would bring the smokehouse to the school and they'd fill it up with like.
No, I was homeschooled.
Oh, that's right.
So the only smoke we got was
from your parents.
We got a whooping for.
Yeah. No, so they would bring these smokehouses to the school and it was like a trailer and they would fill up with smoke. And they would reenact, like, so they'd have like a little bed in there, and you'd lay in there, and they'd fill it up with smoke, and then they'd set the detector off, and you would have to like crawl and get out.
Wait, they would put like a little 10-year-old. They're like, okay, we're gonna close these doors, lay down on this bed, fill it with smoke.
At least the one I did was. But
Man,
now some of them,
traumatizing
I've seen
experiences.
some of them where they just like walk you through it, and you have to crawl through, and it's just like kid after kid.
What?
But I remember as a kid because I had asthma. Like, they wouldn't ever let me go through it because they were like, you know, you have asthma, it's too dangerous. And then I ended up growing up. I grew up and I'm like, screw y'all, I'm going to be a firefighter. So,
well,
instead I crawl around buildings that are actually burning.
We really are formed from our childhood, aren't we?
Yeah, that's trauma.
You didn't get to do, you deny me this, I will make it my occupation.
Yeah. That was actually one of the few occupations my mom specifically asked me not to ever do.
Screw you,
like
Mom.
Military, police, and fire. And I was like, I'm going with fire.
Though, honestly, I mean, firefighting, obviously a rough gig, but also kind of a sweet gig.
You're basically a glorified janitor.
What?
I mean, 90% of the time you're cleaning toilets and trucks and... That's what you do with a temporary moment of glory.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Did it ever feel glorious?
No. No, not at all. I think most firemen would agree. It is an adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure. But like, I mean, you're just crawling around in nasty, you know, and like a house fire, like you can't see anything. Like it's pitch black. And you crawl around till you see a faint orange glow, and it gets hotter and hotter the closer you get to the fire, and you're like, oh, there it is. So it's really not that glorious.
So what, because you're pulling a hose through the fire?
Yeah, well, depending on what role you're playing. You know, if you're on an engine crew, you're probably pulling a hose. If you're on a ladder crew, you're forcing entry, ventilation, search and rescue. Then you got cities will have actually a search and rescue truck, and their role is search and rescue. So it just depends on what role you're playing. But, you know, you either have a hose or a heavy tool with you the entire time. So general rule is you don't go in without something in your hand. So.
And search and rescue is then to pull people back out of the fire kind of deal.
Yeah. Which generally speaking, 99.9% of the time, if there's somebody in there, they're probably not alive by the time you get to them.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but it's just the reality of what happens.
Yeah.
Man, this got dark real fast.
Not as dark as the last one, actually. It goes wherever. I mean, you're here, so we'll go wherever it goes. But you're talking about the response time, and they're probably not alive by the time you get there, which is a scary thought.
Well,
right?
we were always taught, and I'm assuming it's the same thing now, that the typical fire doubles in size every minute. So if you consider when you call 911, a dispatcher has to answer the phone, get all the information, then that, as they're typing it into the computer, it's showing up on a separate dispatcher's computer. That dispatcher is dispatching us.
Right.
So that's already a couple minutes there. Yeah. And then like I was with the city of High Point, where our stations were strategically placed where you had what was called your first call territory. And it's basically based off of GPS mapping that says this truck can be, to be in your first call territory within 5 minutes, it can be to anywhere within this certain mile radius of the station. And then they would track response times. And ideally, they want you there from the point of you being dispatched within 5 minutes, which is really quick. Because you're talking, you know, you're in the station cleaning, or at night you're sleeping, bell goes off, you got to get up, throw your gear on, get on the truck, and out the door. And so by the time all that happens, you're talking probably 5 to 10 minutes by the time you actually arrive on scene. Well, that's, who knows how long it's been burning by that point. And so it's like if somebody is trapped inside in a typical house, that's not that big of a space for them to go anywhere to avoid the fire. Yeah. Which generally speaking, it's not the fire that kills them anyway. It's smoke inhalation. So, which, not that that's a great way to die, but it's better than burning to death.
Jeez. So, I guess so. I've never tried it.
Yeah, I would prefer not to either.
Jeez. That way, being burned alive
would be absolutely horrible.
Drowning. Completely opposites.
See, I used to say the same thing. I was like, drowning to death or burning alive would be like the two worst ways of dying. Then I end up becoming a firefighter and on the dive and swiftwater rescue team. It's like the two things that could possibly kill me. And I'm like, somewhere I made some poor life choices. I made quite a few more poor life choices than that.
Yeah, we'll get into all of them.
Oh, Lord.
Hey, but here's to doing things that scare you.
Cheers.
But yeah, because if it doubles every minute and it's 10 minutes, then that's a true exponential curve. Because lots of people use exponential wrong. I always use it right, obviously, because I'm a mathematician.
Yeah.
But if it's doubling every 10 minutes, because there was one of the neighbors that I used to live in here in Winston-Salem. I think I was going to the gym. And as I turned onto this back road, there was just like this pillar of smoke that was coming out of this one house.
Yep.
And a couple like neighbors had come up, because I would imagine by the time you get the call, it's not like it's got to be uncontrollable, you know. By the time that people call, because I pulled up, there a couple of neighbors were coming out of the house as well, looking at it, and there was this guy in the middle of the road, kind of an older guy with his much older mom. I guess like he kind of like lived with her or whatever. Like that. She's standing there holding she was holding an egg in one hand and holding a frying pan in the other, in the middle of the road, kind of like Alzheimer's, kind of something not quite. And the guy was standing in the grass.
I'm just going to cook this over the house.
Oh, it's like, I know who's at fault here. And he's screaming at the house. I forget what it was. Something like, Leroy
Jenkins.
And I was like, oh my gosh, there's someone still in this house. Like, is it his dad or
it's probably a dog,
whatever. And so I got out of the car. You are good at this. I got out of the car
and I was
about to like wrap my t-shirt around my face and lots of smoke going in. And I was like, I mean, someone's got to go in here and get this. And all my other elderly neighbors aren't going to.
Seth being a hero.
And I was like, who's in the house? Who's in the house? He's like, our dog Leroy.
That's like totally not worth it.
And I honestly thought, I was like, yeah, not worth it.
Yeah.
Not for
animals.
Dogs.
Animals are surprisingly good at getting out though. Unless they're in a crate or something.
We never saw Leroy.
Yeah.
I don't think we saw Leroy. But
I have
old people have old pets.
Yeah.
You notice that?
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. I have seen a lot of animals still in crates.
Oof.
It's pretty sad, actually.
Oh, that's awful.
Because it's kind of like, and numerous times, especially cats, those jokers can get out of anything.
Cats do. Are
It's
you
like
kidding?
the whole house is on fire and somebody's screaming for their cat, and they look over and it's like sitting next to them. It's like, how did you get out here? But it happens.
Oh man. Well, they're not left in crates.
No.
That's the reason.
Yeah.
Have you seen some of those videos in? I just saw one like in Indonesia. I think it was Indonesia. This whole apartment complex is on fire, and probably 80 guys are running over to the base of where like kind of the fire's coming out of this one apartment.
Yeah.
And the guy that's in there is running back, and he's just dropping children out of the window, and they're catching
Now
them.
that's a hero.
It
right
must
there.
have honestly be it's probably like 2 or 3 stories that they're dropping these kids down, and all the people down there just catching them.
That's crazy.
And then the guy eventually jumps out as well, and they catch him too. And evidently, nobody died in that. But
that's amazing.
that kind of like response, because
Well, especially in a third world nation.
exactly
Like that. I mean, what other option do you have?
Yeah.
And it's like,
who's
man,
going to fight it?
Yeah, that's
just
crazy.
everybody.
Yeah, that's a true hero.
Yeah, but even at that house that where the guy was shouting for Leroy, I mean the the fire station. I could just be making that. I think it was Leroy, but the fire station wasn't. I mean, it's maybe a mile and a half down the road.
Yeah,
And so I thought, like, oh yeah, we'll see them any minute.
yeah,
It was probably 12 minutes.
yeah. Well, and that's
Even
the thing is
from
most
there.
people think like soon as they call, like it's just instantly. And there's a lot going on, especially on the dispatch end, that's going on before we even get notified.
Yeah.
And so it just unfortunately it just takes time, which they have mitigated a lot of the time and narrowed it down. There every time new technology comes out, it's
What's the new technology?
well, so even since I've left, which is
7
What?
years?
no,
6
I think
years?
5.
5 years?
I think 5 years. Like now, the dispatch that comes across the station radio is not an actual person. It's all like a AI.
Siri.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, everybody's iPhones start
Hello.
blowing up.
If you could respond to this location,
It would be great. There seems to be a disturbance.
Jeff Bezos coming through there.
Oh my god. So yeah, and they've cut that out because
Because that's faster.
it's
You're saying.
faster and
The relays it.
there were instances depending on who the dispatcher was, like it was hard to understand what they were saying, and you'd be like,
Oh no.
which obviously it would. In all the trucks, there's a computer, so it'd pop up in there. But if you're not in the truck, you don't know till you get in the truck what the address and all that is. If you can't understand what the dispatcher is saying, you're like, what?
When you also, depending on when it was, you just it's 2 a.m. You just woke up.
Yeah, you're half out of it. And that's, because that's what they used to always would tell us is like the leading cause of death in firefighters is heart attack. And part of it was the stress of you're completely asleep, dead to the world, and then within seconds, you're wide awake and just wide open. And it's like full on adrenaline rush, which I guess over an extended career really isn't that good on your heart and system.
Oh, that's awful.
And so
When you say the leading cause, like how many firefighters a year?
That I don't know.
What's-
We used to hear the stats all the time, and I don't remember any of it now. But it was always heart condition was the main problem, and a lot of it between that and then just the general what they would say stress of the job. Because I don't know, I never really felt like it bothered me. But
Cold-hearted
I'm
killer.
I'm just a cold heart, don't care. But it's just like I remember to this day the very first CPR I ever ran was a 3-year-old little girl, and like I remember like Landon, my oldest son, was around the same age at the time, and I just remember thinking like the thing I remember the most about it because the little girl already had a pacemaker, so she had some serious problems already. But I just remember that mom just wailing. And I just, in the middle of it, all you think about is just doing your job, but it's like when you get back to the station and you're like, man, what if that was my little boy laying there? And it's like, and then you start thinking about it. And it's like, I cannot imagine because the girl didn't make it. And I was like, I could not imagine being a parent and seeing your kid laying there. And that was a weird situation because if I remember correctly, they were a Hispanic family. And I guess maybe there was some translation issues when they called dispatch. Because when we left for the call, we thought it was an older person. which again, you hate that anybody dies, but you kind of expect that if you're showing up to a cardiac arrest, it's like, it's probably going to be an older person. But then you walk in and there's a 3-year-old girl laying in the floor, and you're like, what the heck is going on? And so, I mean, I'll never forget that, you know. And so, obviously, stuff like that over time, you know, if you're dealing with that routinely. And I've always said, the average person, if you heard kind of the sense of humor in the firehouse, or even like an EMS house, a lot of people would be like, God, y'all are like cold-hearted. And it's not that they're making fun. It's just that's a coping mechanism to deal with. You're literally dealing with tragedy all the time. And so you make light of it just to mentally try to cope with the craziness around you. Because if not, it probably would start to really affect you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because is there a fair amount of diagnosed PTSD in firefighters?
Probably. I don't know.
Because the whole like making fun of something, make light of it, you know, that's an interesting thing because I don't know if that's primarily like a male thing.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like it kind of, or if it's just the men are, you know, usually like the firemen, the police officers, you know, military people.
I mean, we had several female firefighters, and it was the same across the board.
Yeah, so maybe it's the experiences
that
you're part of.
Obviously, in that line of work, it typically draws a certain personality.
True.
You know, because it's not for everybody. And we would have people, you know, that would get hired, they would go through rookie school, and then start running calls, and then all of a sudden, it was just like they were like, "This is not for me." And it's just the reality. And it's like, and we would tell people, new people all the time, it's like, look, if you get out here and you can't perform your job because it's like, you know, some of them would freak out. Some of them would just lock up and freeze. And it's like, hey, it's okay. Like, this is not for everybody.
Yeah.
And the same thing, military, police, fire, EMS. It's like, you are dealing with tragedy. You're dealing with a lot of people on the worst day of their lives. And it's like, you need to mentally be prepared for that and be able to function and do your job, because at the end of the day, that's what you're there for.
Yeah.
And, you know, most of the departments have, you know, like not on staff, but like we had at High Point a pastor, and then I feel like they had like a whole, like there was
counselor or something?
Yeah, that if you needed to talk, that was available to you.
They served the whole, county?
I think for ours, it was the city. And then probably the county had a separate thing too, because usually the counties and cities are completely ran, you know, separate as far as the government side of it goes. But I just remember
fellas like utilizing that, or the ladies.
Some I never knew anybody to really do it, but I know of a couple times where we had ran calls that involved a death in a fire or a death of a kid. And like the pastor, and I don't remember what church he was associated with, but it was there in the city. And like within a few days, he would just show up at the station and just be like, hey, just swinging by to see if everybody's okay. Yeah. You know, does anybody need to talk? And so you kind of knew it was there if you needed it. But how many guys did I ever actually see utilize it? To my knowledge, I don't really remember anybody. Yeah. But then the same thing, maybe they were going and talking and just didn't say anything about it.
Maybe a stigma involved in it or something like that.
So,
because the average person, I mean, you did that for 13 years.
Yeah.
So I mean,
13 years paid, and then I was a year and a half or two volunteered prior to that. So
oh wow.
So probably close to 14, 15 years of involved in it.
The amount of stuff you see in that profession, in that line of work, because you're running. I mean, you're the first responder to like car accidents too, obviously fire, just about every situation.
I was about to say, the mass majority of our call volume was med calls because we all had to be EMTs as well.
Gotcha.
So
why did they send this huge 40-ton truck as the first responder?
Because there's more of us than there are EMS trucks. And so generally we could get there and generally get the patient stabilized.
And you're strategically placed as well around the city.
Yeah. So we would go get them stabilized. The paramedic EMS truck would show up, which could do the transport. And then we would transfer care over to those guys. And then obviously they have a higher level of training than we do because they could push medication and stuff where we couldn't. Which some big
couldn't?
No. Well, we could some. Just not like the major drugs.
Yeah.
You have to have paramedic certification for that. But like your big cities, like especially out west, I think FDNY, they're starting to require their firefighters to be paramedics because you could push medication. And so it's like, well, you're getting there first anyway, so let's go ahead and get, because there's certain things you got to have the medication in there. But like we could do Narcan, which is, we used in the case of like a drug overdose, especially heroin, which when I left, if I remember the stat correctly, when I left the city of High Point, we were averaging, I think, 9 overdoses a day from heroin or fentanyl. And it's like, and that's just High Point. And I was like, that is a lot of overdoses.
9 a day in High Point?
No, I don't know what it is. I don't remember.
Well, but it's worse now. I mean,
Probably.
I feel like the opioid crisis, you hear more and more about that now.
Yeah, and that was the big one. It's like, in all honesty, I can't remember that many times where we ran any overdose other than heroin or fentanyl. And I remember running one kid. I say kid, he was 19. My crew ran him, I think, 3 different times. And each time he was flatline dead when we got there. Give him Narcan, and he just like instantly comes back. Usually they're typically in withdrawal and usually wanting to fight. And I'll never, because his mom or his brother would always find him. And I remember one time in particular, my driver at the time looking at this kid and being like, man, one of these times mom or brother's not going to be here. And that's all she wrote. And the kid just kind of like shrugged his shoulders.
Yeah, he's not in control of himself at that point, though.
Yeah.
He's not in control of it.
Yeah, but it's just sad, Yeah. And
so wait, what's in Narcan?
So Narcan is just basically actually they're passing it out, or when I left, they were passing it out at schools. A lot of cops are keeping it on them now because
passing it out in schools.
Yeah, which we had a hard time with because it's like it almost makes, especially teenagers who are still developing and learning themselves.
Like, can you get high off of it?
No. So basically, it reverses the overdose. Essentially, that's kind of dumbing it down. I mean, I've literally, like that kid, seen they were flatline dead. Now, granted, if they've been dead for a while, it's not going to do anything. But it's like if it happened within minutes, it's like you give them Narcan and all of a sudden they just.
Wait, is that what they shot into her in? What's that movie? John Travolta.
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, Pulp Fiction. Is that what they did to bring her back?
Idea.
Okay.
I don't know.
Big old needle right in the chest.
Well, so now they've got like a nasal one that you can squirt in their nose. That's a lot of what they pass out at the school. But it's kind of one of those, like the dose, from my understanding, what they're passing out at the schools it's enough, I guess, if it's a minor overdose. But it almost, one of the problems we had is it kind of seems like by passing it out, it's almost like telling the kids, it's like, well, you can experiment and just in case, here's Narcan. And it's like, well, I don't know that that's such a good thing. It's like, and if it's a major overdose, it's like, is that enough to really bring them back anyway? And then a lot of times in a situation like that, if you're with your buddies and somebody's doing something and he conks out, it's like, well, are they going to call 911 because everybody's freaking out? And it's like, I don't know if that's such a good thing.
Or are the kids actually going to keep it on them?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Are they going to keep up with it and keep it on them? Yeah. So, it's like, I think obviously the thought process behind it was a good thing. It's like, well, this will maybe save lives. But
were the majority of the overdoses you ran minors?
No, I would say most of them were probably in their 20s, maybe 30s. So, I mean, it was a wide spectrum. The area of town my station was in was probably the roughest area of High Point, which is odd because a lot of times where you would see your overdoses are in the nicer areas of town, which is contradictory to what most people would think. But
I think that's what you're seeing more and more now with the opioid crisis because it's a lot of prescription drugs they're getting. You have to get
and it's not cheap.
No.
So, but yeah, so, it was just that weird thing because, you had your station that you're stationed at, but a lot of times you'd end up traveling to other stations because a guy's out sick or somebody's on vacation. And so they would move you around. And it's like, you would think, oh, they're moving me to the nice area of town. And it's like, then all of a sudden you realize in that world, it's like, the nice area of town's got just as many problems as the bad area of town. And just kind of shows you that human condition of like, it doesn't really matter how much money you make or don't make. Like everybody's struggling with different things and are looking for coping mechanisms. Yeah.
So isn't there, what's the good Samaritan rule, right? Because if the kid that you ran that on 3 times, you didn't get arrested. He didn't go to prison for using heroin?
No, I don't.
Because it's something like if you call the ambulance for somebody, they don't get charged. Or
yeah, I don't remember how that worked exactly, but yes, and the whole I think concept behind that was to get people to actually call 911 to potentially save somebody's life, because a lot of people, kids or even adults, it's like, well, here we're doing an illegal activity. I'm not calling 911 because I could go to jail.
Right.
And it's like, well, they put it in place so you would call 911.
Right.
You know, that's kind of the thought process behind it. But so I don't fully know all the ins and outs of all that. You know, at the end of the day, our job at the fire department is we're there just to help. You know, and it's like I said, the area of town we were in was pretty rough. We dealt with a lot of gang violence and stuff like that. And generally speaking, we as the fire department never had any issues with anybody. Nobody ever gave us a hard time, because part of it is
you weren't going to arrest them.
Well, no, everybody
have a gun.
Well, and everybody knew we were there just to help.
Down.
Yeah, it's like our role is to help. Like at the end of the day, we're not interested in what you're doing. Like if you're doing drugs, we need to know, just because that's going to dictate how we treat you, but not like treat you like medically, because we need to know what's in your system. But like at the end of the day, it's like our job's not to get you in trouble. Our job is to try to help. And so it seemed like overall most people were receptive of that and never really gave us a problem.
Yeah.
So
13 years in that, and you said adios.
I'm out.
You mentioned that thing about the heart attacks. You know what, the day that every year there's one day that there's the most heart attacks on. You know what that is?
I have no idea.
David knows. David's excited.
Daylight savings.
It's the daylight savings.
Really? Why is that?
Well, because you're used to waking up at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
You stay up an extra hour. You wake up at 6 a.m. And that's right. What's the difference in that day versus others? But it's something like
that extra hour gets you every time.
PSA right here. You want to make sure that on that morning, because you were mentioning coming out of that deep sleep.
Yeah.
You know, heart race and everything. And everybody's even experienced that with even just an alarm. You know, you sit a little bit early for a flight or something like that.
Deep REM sleep, and all of a sudden,
that REM sleep. Love that REM sleep. I'm not getting much of that these days, but so the day that most heart attacks every year.
All of a sudden a baby starts screaming. I've been there, done that 3 times.
3 times. She's pretty polite. She kind of starts off like letting you know, she's like, you know, so if you don't catch her right away,
she gives you a pre-warning. Yeah.
Short fuse. Do you find that?
Basically, multiple studies have shown a small increase in heart attacks after the start of daylight savings in the spring, and a small decrease in heart attacks at the end in the fall.
Getting that sleep.
Yeah.
Small.
It's all about
the
sleep.
That's what the small is, but
yeah.
What if you're like us and you just don't sleep hardly at all?
Dude, you don't sleep. You're a monster. I tell people, so for those of you that don't, so tell people, I'll segue this really quick. The couple of shoots we've gone on, you are this monster.
You sleep when you're dead.
It's like we are going to shoot the sunset, which in the summer, usually when we're out there, sunset's, 8:39.
Yep.
And then we got to go get some food after that because we've been traveling all day. So
then it's time to shoot the stars.
Exactly. And then you're like, okay, now we're going to go get some astrophotography. And then we got to wake back up at 4:30 to drive an hour, hike an hour.
Because we got to be there
for your sunrise.
Yeah.
You monster. Yeah, that's why I had to stop doing that, because I knew I was going to die dead. But
you hadn't been with me in a while.
You haven't invited me in a while.
You're always, it's an open invitation.
You always say that, but then I text you and you're like, oh, I'm in
already
Montana.
in Washington.
Exactly. I'm in Montana.
But if you can get a ticket in the next 2 days, you're good. Come on.
No, we need to do some stuff this year. I got I want to start doing more. We got some 9.1 coming in.
A little bit.
Popping in.
24% jump, which is not small.
24%? Yeah, what? Small. Yeah, quarter increase.
I kind of like the music, though.
Just a little background music.
David will give us a
I feel like I'm in an elevator riding up. Like.
Thanks, 99.1. But so you did the firefighting thing for 3 years. 13 years. Sorry, actually a year and a half where you were volunteering. Volunteering, what a rough.
Well, that was just a way to kind of see if I was even remotely interested in it.
Because there's a lot of applicants every year, right?
Yeah. So when I got hired, I'm trying to remember. I think there was 900 and some applicants, and this was just the city of High Point. And out of that group, only 18 of us got hired. Ooh. I was like, well, that's not really very good odds.
2000.
Oh Lord.
4. Then
it was
like
21 when I got hired. I was a baby.
Baby face.
Yeah.
21. So yeah, 14, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So
which is crazy.
kind of
Doesn't feel that long ago.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, I know during, the big recession, early 2000s,
Yep.
I know Firefighters was like, people were
Everybody.
holding on to that
Yep.
job. Everybody was
Yep.
trying to get into it, just looking for
'Cause
something to work. And
when everything goes down south in the overall thing, like that line of work is busy. So, well, just because in general, it's like, everybody's losing their job. All of a sudden, people are depressed. You start having more. Unfortunately, you'll see a spike in suicide calls and stuff like that. And it's like, well, we're the first ones to show up on that. And which I will say, those are the creepiest calls that you run. It's just like, I don't know. You instantly can feel like it's almost like you can walk into the house and you can just sense, like, you can feel it. Like before you even know what's going on, you're like, something's off. And then you find out it was suicide. And it's like, man, I hate that,
Wow.
But not to go dark again.
We'll bring us back up. So wait, do you keep any contacts in the firefighting role? Like was the shutdown pretty crazy? I mean, mentioning like people being depressed. I mean, everybody I don't care who you were, you ran through something like that.
Well, obviously, I think it was probably a little bit stressful in the fire department because of they were having to do these like spray downs of the truck and the fire station. So anytime they ran like something that was COVID related, it was like they had a separate truck of a crew with guys that would come and like spray down the inside of the truck, come in and spray down like once a week. You'd have the crew would come in and they'd have to spray the station and they'd have to stay out of the station for X amount of time while everything was disinfected. And it was like, well, man, you add that on top of the workload you already have. Now you've got to go out of service, make sure everything's getting cleaned all the time. And it's like, man, that could be stressful.
The toilets got really dirty.
Toilet's really dirty.
They're just like, I ain't got time to clean that. There was just so much stuff at the beginning. You remember even when we first walked down here, I mean, you're ordering everything on Amazon basically.
Yeah.
Because you're not leaving your house.
Yeah.
And everything that came.
I'll be honest, I traveled the entire time.
You did not.
I did.
You did not. You did that like whole stay home photo shoot kind of thing. You were locked in for like a month.
Yeah, maybe a month. Maybe. And then I ended up in East Africa.
You ended up there.
Yeah, ended up. Like you didn't have the choice to do it.
No, it was just random. I was like, here I am.
I guess in
Kenya.
How did I got here? But everything that came, we were wiping down the outside of all the cardboard boxes, everything that like came home from the grocery store, wiping it, just all this stuff that like actually now we know, it's not sticking to cardboard. It's not sticking to that stuff. It's, completely aerosolized.
Yeah.
Aerosolized in the air.
Is that a technical term?
I think so. Just everything. Basically, it was just this shotgun approach of like, we're going to do everything to try to make sure that, we're safe. And then, finding out a lot of those things probably
Seth,
didn't matter
I told
at
you
all.
my agent said for me not to talk about
Well,
this
we're
stuff,
going in anyway. So
if only I had an agent.
I told you. So you're going fire department for all those years. And then I knew you even kind of before this. You're like doing firefighting, doing photography kind of at the same time.
Yep. Which I did photography technically before the fire department.
Okay.
So I was shooting furniture full time in High Point.
Of course.
Doing all the studio stuff. And I did that for 3 years, I think.
You were actually shooting or you were just like assisting?
No, I was shooting.
What?
Yep. And so I started off, I actually got hired at one of the big studios in High Point down in their lab because at the time it was still film. Digital was like just starting, which makes me sound really old.
Yeah, you are really old. You got some gray under there.
Yeah, just a little bit. There's other reasons for that.
3 kids.
We won't get into that. So I started off in the lab running film processors and doing prints and then worked my way up to the studio. This was medium
format?
Yep. No, actually, it was large format. So once I went to shooting, everything was being shot 4x5 view camera and occasionally 8x10.
Wasn't that overkill?
For
magazines. This is for magazines.
No,
right?
it was for
They're printing
commercial.
These for
so the actual
for
furniture companies like Home Depot, Lowe's, Ashley Furniture.
For those who don't know, when you're shooting either large format or medium format, I mean it's a massive file. Like.
Yeah.
I mean, do you even measure that in pixels at that point?
No, because I mean, obviously, you're measuring it based on the size of the actual film.
Yeah.
Which now, granted, at that time we were shooting film would process it at the studio, and then would take it to, they had a digital department, and they would scan it, and then they would, most of the time the client's not on set, so they would email a low-res version over to the client. Sometimes it would take 3 days to hear back from them, and they'd be like, could you move that lamp like 3 feet to the left? And be like, okay. And so you'd go shoot it again, process the film, and go through that whole process to finally, they were like, actually, let's just move the lamp back to where it was to begin with. And I was like, oh my
Typical.
gosh. But I was at that studio when they transitioned to digital.
What was the first camera?
From what I remember, we had a Cinar Braun 3-pass view camera. So it would actually shoot a red, green, and blue 3 different images. So nothing in the actual set could be moving. And then it would merge all 3 together to get the full color spectrum, which was wild. And then we went from that to what was called the Leaf system, which was on a Mamiya medium format back. Mamiya camera, and it was a digital back to go onto it. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not 100% sure on this, I think they're shooting Canon SLRs or digital SLRs now.
Yeah, you might as well.
So, so now everything's fully, and even when I first started shooting, lighting-wise, we were using all hot lights. And then I was there when we transitioned.
I know I bought 4 off of you. I'm still trying to get rid of those things.
Those things might be worth some money. They're like
They're
ancient
not.
now.
They're not.
But we transitioned from those to Profoto strobes, which was a little bit of a learning curve because, with hot lights, you can see what you're doing as you're moving it around, whereas the strobe is not till you pop it.
Yeah.
So, I ended up doing that I think I was there for like 3.5 years. And got a little burned out being stuck in a studio and the dungeon.
Studio work is brutal.
Yeah.
Especially when you're having to do it that way.
And when the sofas start talking back to you, you're like, I got to get out of here. And so the whole fire department thing just kind of randomly happened. And it was one of those, this is how bad the pay was at the studio. I got a $10,000 pay raise when I went to the fire department, which is generally a pretty low paying job. So I was like, I'm rich. Might die, but I'm rich.
Risking my life for this $10,000.
But
you were working full time at the studio and was still 10 grand.
Yep.
Going there.
Mm-hmm.
Criminal.
Yeah. And so, which I started volunteering first because a buddy of mine was a captain at a volunteer / half paid, half volunteer. So he was paid, and he mentioned, he was like, just come volunteer. Like, we'll pay to get all your certifications and training. As long as I think you had to guarantee at least volunteering a year after training to make it worth their investment. Mm-hmm. So, and he was like, and 2, he's like, you get to get in it, you get to run some calls, you'll see if it's something that you actually want to pursue. And so I did that, ended up getting hired on at High Point, and it was kind of one of those, well, 1, it was a pay raise. 2, you had a lot of days off, which meant I got to shoot what I wanted to shoot and start building the business that I wanted on my days off, which granted, I started shooting weddings and portraits initially just because that was the fastest and easiest way to make money, which was equally as miserable as furniture, or if not more.
Careful. You shot my wedding, you son of a gun.
It was miserable.
You did.
I didn't shoot your wedding.
You wouldn't do it.
No. I have turned several people down. Not because I don't like them.
I've turned you down, Adam.
I just hate shooting weddings.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Which you can make great money.
Some people love it.
Yeah, some people love it, and
more power to you.
You can make really good money with it, but
it's a long day.
Every weekend's going to be
the main reason why I didn't start in weddings because that's still something I get 7 years now. It's Twin City Media. Yeah, people ask me like, so do you do weddings? And I was like, in 7 years, I've done 2.
Yeah.
And that's
$25,000.
Exactly. Where are we shooting it? Bahamas? Okay. But you get one, and video is even worse for weddings because you've got minimum 3 people. You've got a mic, sometimes 4.
Yep.
Mics are unless they're running into some sort of a ball game. It is. Itself, real creative individuals, real men, real women do video. Yeah. If
Smart
you can't, they
do
photography. That's true.
Yeah. Work smarter, not harder, Seth.
You take one photo, you get paid what we do for a whole day of shooting video sometimes. But you've got to, everything is one take.
Yep.
Because you don't get to say like, oh, sorry, the audio messed up on the preacher. Can we have the whole sermon again, right? Or can you come back down the aisle again?
Yeah. Well, that's the benefit, though, to me of why what I enjoyed about, or what I felt like I learned from the wedding world in particular, is like, you've got one shot to get it. You better know your equipment, because if you screw it up, there is no retake.
Which is
And
carried
it's
over
like-
to now to what you're doing in outdoors, you're saying? Because you get one sunset.
Well, yeah, true. But now, granted, it's not as high pressured, but on the same sense, that world forces you to know your equipment. It forces you to know what you're doing.
That's true. Good training ground.
Yep. And so, like, especially on a commercial job, it's like, sure, commercial jobs, you got a little bit of leeway if something screws up where you can kind of go back and do it if you had to. But it really makes your clients feel good in hiring you, knowing that, hey, he's going to get the shot.
Yeah.
You know, because when you have somebody dropping significant money, they expect you to know what you're doing, and you can't use the excuse of, oh, well, the weather's bad, or, you know, whatever. Same thing. It's like,
That's not an excuse.
yeah, it's like, yeah, I said I couldn't get the shot. It was raining. It's like, so what? We like, there are no makeup days, you know.
Yeah.
But
So
you know, I learned a lot through the weddings. But like talking about no sleep, I was like, man, back those days, it was like work at the fire department 24 hours. You get off, go shoot a wedding all day, come home, got 3 kids. So it's like help with the kids. They go to bed. Now I'm up to 3 a.m. editing, because that's the only time you've got. Go to bed, get back up at 6 a.m. And it was just like all day, every day like that. And it's just like you're running on, you know, a few hours of sleep all the time.
that's what I was going to say. With having you on, I wanted to make sure I said this, that you are one of, I know a lot of very driven people.
Mm-hmm.
People I feel like are very driven, eyes on the prize. Where you are obsessed.
That doesn't sound like a good thing.
You are obsessed and driven in a way that honestly has been really inspiring to me. In some ways, I'm like, okay, I'm never going to be like that. But you know,
You're
it's
a pretty driven guy, Seth.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. But you're obsessed. I know I'm a very driven guy.
Seth's like, but you're unhealthily obsessed.
But we need an intervention for.
This is why we brought you in today.
But
here's a psychologist.
But I mean, the way that you, because I mean, making that switch. I remember when you went full time into photography.
yeah.
You've been doing it for maybe 4 years, kind of trying to build this outdoor. For those of you who don't know, we should pull up some. It's what Adam Mowery photo.
No, just AdamMowery.com is the website.
Well, yeah, but we're pulling up your Instagram.
Oh yeah,
People ain't
Adam
going to go to
Mowery
your
photo.
website.
Yeah, that's true. Websites are so outdated. The bad
What's a
thing
website?
is like the
when you get into that
Instagram's
metaverse.
all like personal work for the most part.
Really?
Yeah, and then the website is all like the commercial work, which I do put some commercial work.
13,000 followers. Come on, get that to 14.
Yeah, well, it was at 15, and then
Ooh, what'd you post?
something
political.
Then I got canceled.
Posted something political.
No,
dropped it.
actually, I just kind of we had to talk about this. I just got a little burned out with the whole Instagram thing, and I probably really should get back in it. And so that last post was probably like
That horse.
probably
That's beautiful.
probably a year ago now. I don't even remember when I posted
June
it.
2021.
Yep. So it's been a while. And so obviously with social, when you kind of drop off from posting regularly, you start losing followers. People don't stick with you through it. But
Wait, how would they? Like they're going back, like, oh, I haven't seen anything from Adam in a while.
I guess, yeah.
Who does that?
Who does that? Those
2,000
jerks.
people.
Yeah, apparently.
Evidently,
well
like
played. Well
8% of your followers. Yeah. Okay. Go,
Yeah.
go to that one. That Sunbeam. No, go down. Go down.
yeah.
Go down. Woo.
Oh, now
Why
that
are you not
one-
just putting up landscape
scroll
stuff?
over there. Scroll over there. It's on the cover of Nat Geo book.
No, it's not.
Yep. What's funny is
The second edition. So this is Secrets of the National Park, second edition, Adam Mowery photo cover. Love that.
That actually, the story behind this is kind of cool.
That is a beautiful photo.
I had no idea
That is completely photoshopped.
that my photo was on the cover of a Nat Geo book. And so this particular image, I had met a guy in the airport
What?
when I was flying. That's in Utah. I was at Capitol Reef National Park. I was in the airport leaving, and just this guy starts talking to me, you know, sitting there waiting on the plane. And he, you know, did photography as a hobby or whatever. Well, I showed him this image on the back of the camera. And so this is probably 2 or 3 years later. He sent me this photo. Like, I hadn't talked to this guy other than the day in the airport. And so I get an email, and it's like, hey, Adam, I don't know if you remember me. I met you in the airport in Utah. He was like, congrats on the
No
book cover.
kidding.
And he had attached that to the email.
What?
And he had just remembered seeing the image on the back of my
Oh, yeah,
camera.
look at this comment here. You said, Just found out this image of mine is on the cover of Nat Geo book. So cool. And somebody says, how did you just find out? I hope they paid for it.
So you see the whole tandem stock comment right there? That's the stock agency that represents me. And they had sold the thing. So I knew the image had sold. I just didn't know what for.
So it doesn't matter the size or circulation of publication?
Well, it does as far as that affects your payment. Like I knew I had got a good payout for it, but they just don't tell you, which kind of frustrates me a little bit because I'm like,
sure,
that's kind of a big deal.
That is a big deal.
I would like to know.
Come on.
And it's like, I feel like as the guy who created the image, I have a right to know where it's being used. But they don't ever tell you necessarily where it goes until some random person that met you in the airport. Wow. It's like, I saw your photo.
So what are the secrets of the national parks?
Well, so basically, I don't know how often Nat Geo puts the book out. I actually had the first edition because I had bought it for my personal use. And basically, they just list all the different national parks and will give you little tidbits of information about like certain trails and like maybe some of the history of the park. And so it's kind of cool. Like if you're like me and you spend a lot of time in the national parks, it's like, this is little tidbits of information you may not see at the visitor center.
Okay.
So
that is beautiful. I love that. What year was that?
That just came out.
That second edition, that just came out.
I think it came out last year, yeah.
Okay.
So
and where was that photo?
That's Capitol Reef National
Oh, of course it's Capitol Reef.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I rented a car. Actually, so that I was there for Outdoor Retailer. I had 24, talking about no sleep, I had 24 hours. I landed at like 5.
Outdoor Retailer is this big convention for all the outdoor brands.
So I had 24 hours. That was it. I landed at like 5 in the evening in Utah, rented a car, I forgot how many hours it is to there, drove all the way through the night, drove like 17 miles, or I forgot how long. It's a long ways down this dirt, like 4-wheel drive road that I did not have a 4-wheel drive vehicle for. I actually tore the underpanel out of the bottom of the rental car.
Hey, Hertz.
This is going to get expensive.
Hey, Hertz, listen up.
I drove all the way there. That's sunrise. To be there for sunrise, shot that image, spent like another couple of hours just shooting around, and then had to drive all the way back to pick up my badge for Outdoor Retailer. Slept in the back. I got there, slept in the back of the rental car, which me and you have done a couple of times.
Many a times.
I slept for like maybe an hour and a half, and then went to Outdoor Retailer.
So the real question is then, did this photo being sold cover the car repair?
Actually,
you got hit with?
They never charged me anything. Because it was, you know how there's like that plastic covering underneath, just kind of, that's what ripped off. And I didn't know it till I was driving back out, and I saw it in the thing, and I was like, I don't remember that being there. And so I get out and I crawl under the car, and I'm like, yep, that definitely come off mine. So I picked it up and threw it in the back of the car. And, you know, when I got back, I told them, and they were like, yeah, don't worry about it. And
oh, wow.
I never got charged for it.
Well, he got fired.
Yeah.
Turn my headphones down just a little bit, David.
He's tired of hearing me already.
Yeah, louder than our last guest. So, what else we got here? So that was about. And then I love your where are those horse photos? Keep going down. Yeah, this is all your Africa stuff. Keep going.
Yeah.
Down more. Keep going. Yeah, some of this black and white cutout horse stuff. Keep going down. You know, there's Kauai.
Yep. Yeah, you were with me on that shot.
That was a fun.
You're standing right next to me when I shot that, actually.
Actually, I think I was watching the camera. You were up drinking with that with the guy who owned the
you probably
property.
actually took that photo.
Yeah, exactly. And then you posted all the son of a gun. Man, so talented. So you went through, started your business, started trying to really just traveling a lot of landscape stuff, and then that kind of just merged into there's some of the from the Bahamas.
Well, you know, when it all kind of initially happened, as far as the outdoor stuff goes, I booked my own trip to Mount Rainier in Washington and attempted to climb it by myself because at the time I had nobody to go with me, and just shot as I went and would shoot other climbing parties. And kind of the goal was there's a camp up there called Camp Muir. Yep. And like the goal was to get to Camp Muir, and then that's kind of where everybody that you climb up to that point, and then the next day you get up super early and try to make the summit push. But above it is a lot of glacier travel, so it's not really safe to be by yourself.
So you got crampons.
Yep. And so the idea was like maybe I can get to Camp Muir, and maybe I can just tag on with another climbing group.
Because that's not something you would solo.
No, it's just. I mean, maybe if you're like an expert climber, you maybe would consider it. But I was just like,
because you're actually using gear.
Yeah.
for elements.
And obviously, when you're doing glacier travel, you got to worry about falling into a crevasse. And if you're by yourself, nobody knows you fell into that crevasse. And so, just not a good idea.
Yeah.
But I was like, if I can make it to Camp Muir, maybe I can tag on with another team to make the summit push. Well, I get up there, and there's like 2 other guys. And they're like, well, yeah, you can go up with us, but we're ski descending. So you'd have to come down by yourself. And I was like, yeah,
Even sketchier.
that's probably not a good idea. So I ended up just camping Camp Muir that night. And then the next morning I got up and just went back down.
And that was like the first little trip you did where it was like, I'm going to travel somewhere. I'm going to shoot it as I go.
Shoot the heck out of it. And so I did that, come back home, and then basically just took that portfolio of images, which really wasn't a ton, but, a handful of decent images. Drove to Asheville because there's like 4 or 5 decent-sized outdoor brands there. And I literally drove up on a Friday, and I went door to door with a portfolio.
We're talking like Eno and...
Yeah, Eno. There was Watershed Dry Bags. Who else was up there? Astral Footwear. Who were the other ones? But basically, like, I went up there door to door, and like 4 of the 5 were like, yeah, we'll do some work with you. And so I ended up doing a couple shots for all those guys, or shoots for those guys, which turned into that trip to Utah, because it was like I built now.
That was your first.
That was the first trip.
OR.
Yep. And literally it was like, all right, now I've got a bank of images. And it was like, well, the most bang for my buck marketing wise is to get to Outdoor Retailer, because every marketing director is under one roof. They're all there at the same time. And so booked a trip to Utah, took a portfolio of images, drove to Capitol Reef, hardly slept.
Tore a car up.
And everybody booked me because they're like, when's the last time you went to sleep? And they're like, we just need to give we need to give you some work so you can like.
We booked this amazing homeless kid to take some photos for
they're
us.
like, are you on drugs? I promise I'm not. So yeah, and that's it. That's where it took off, and it just.
And that's still what you're doing, is a lot of outdoor work and.
Yeah, and so at the time,
brands.
obviously, I was still at the fire department. And
when did you figure out? When did you find out that this is what you wanted to do? That this was the right cross? Because
it was kind of this is what got me into photography. I started shooting when I was 15 because my dad, he worked at RJ Reynolds, but then did photography kind of on the side, doing weddings and portraits. And
we should mention really quickly. So, who are some of the folks that you've shot for? Drop some names on us.
Smartwool, Marmot. So I shoot kind of the outdoor rec world and the hunting fish world,
right? Which is new.
Which is new in the last 2 years, really, since the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And so, like, the outdoor rec world was Smartwool, Marmot, Nemo Equipment, Mountain Smith backpacks, Danner boots.
Danner.
And then on the hunt side, Browning Firearms, First Light Camo, Lacrosse boots, which Lacrosse and Danner's essentially the same company. Awesome. So, yeah, just kind of all over the place. And then do a lot of, like, work for Backpacker Magazine, which editorial work doesn't really pay the best, but it gives you a lot of exposure and clout with the brands.
A lot of clout, street cred is what we call it here.
So, and it pays all right.
But what's the biggest perk about working with outdoor brands?
Free gear.
There you go. There you go. So every time I go over to your house, Adam is he's couch surfing with some good friends of his. You have let them live with him for what, like a year now or something like that?
Yeah, that's not because we're
dirty dog.
That's because we sold our house.
Business is not good. So, and the entire
you will never get paid
downstairs,
in the outdoor world.
The entire basement is boxes of free gear that is coming from you. Free gear, maybe some stuff you bought.
Yeah.
What's the last time you actually bought some gear?
I don't know. I buy stuff pretty regularly, but once you're in the industry,
you
get what's called a pro deal. Yeah. So you basically get it for pretty darn cheap.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I'm a big fan of Filson. I've yet to shoot for them, but
what is Filson? I don't even know.
So Filson is like, they're not a technical outdoor apparel. So they've been around since like the 1800s. They were like the initial outfitter for all the people going to the Yukon for the gold rush. And they have survived. They're based out of Seattle. Really cool brand.
Oh, okay. Like, so cowboy stuff.
Well, so a lot is kind of like the classic workwear / like rugged.
Is Carhartt.
In my opinion, is better than Carhartt.
Better than Carhartt.
It's way more expensive.
Yo, Filson, listen up. Hire my boy
check out,
Adam.
$495 for the wool jacket.
Whoa. This wool cruiser jacket, $495.
It's
This
amazing.
wool-
I have one of those, and it's
wool cape
amazing.
coat
I did
is
not pay that. I did not pay that much money for it though.
What?
Yeah.
Wait,
So
wait.
they're
I feel like I saw Filson at Kmart growing up. Am I wrong about that?
yes, 100%.
Okay.
But
That is
their
a good
former
looking hat.
creative director is a good buddy
Oh,
of mine.
go down to those bags. Oh, that is beautiful. These duffel bags.
The cool thing
briefcase.
with Filson,
Those are
granted, it is
beautiful.
stupid expensive, but literally, I've seen guys with those wool jackets, and they've got their great grandpa's jacket.
Oh,
It's like you have a jacket
on.
that'll last for multiple generations,
Come on.
and they stand behind their product. If anything happens to it, you send it back. They either fix it or replace it for free.
Unreal. I
So
love this.
they stand behind their
Look
thing.
at that photo.
So that is my buddy Chris Douglas. He shoots almost all of their stuff, and he was their in-house creative director for a while.
Wow.
He now lives in Prairie, Montana, and shoots for them, Stetson, Boot Barn. Like he's very much got that Western vibe to it, but he is a killer
I love that
photographer.
photo.
Yeah.
This is the photo at the very bottom of the Filson.com website for those of you following along at home.
Yeah.
Filson and Kraken. What's Kraken?
I don't know who that is.
Or Kraken?
Somebody that
What's Seattle Kraken.
which would make sense. They partner with somebody in Seattle because they're based in Seattle. Their headquarters in Seattle is awesome.
Yeah,
Like I could just sit inside there for hours.
I want to go. I love some of this stuff. I've been looking for like a wool jacket like that. I'm kind of,
I should have brought mine today.
should have given it to me today.
No, I should have.
So ever since we had Ruby, I've started thinking more and more about like I get a little bit jealous of my friends who've got like a great grandfather and they're wearing like their great grandfather's Rolex and stuff like that, like heirloom things,
Yeah.
heirloom items.
Yeah, once you have a kid, your perspective on that changes a little bit.
So the only heirloom item I've got for Ruby so far is
Pair of
my
old dirty
Lego
underwear.
set. Kid, you're getting a bunch of Legos. But there's a couple of things that I want. I want a thinking either an Omega or a Rolex.
Mhm.
Down the line, going to do Tudor, I think, first.
Yep.
A couple of their Chrono not Baywatch.
Who is it that
Bay
sponsors
58's
Jimmy
Chronos.
Chin? There's one of the watch companies that did a big thing. And they sponsored Jimmy Chin.
I don't know, but I want that, and I want a
Any watch
heirloom.
companies out there would like to sponsor Adam Mowery. He is
Here we
available.
go. Keep shouting them out. Wanted to do some G-Shock, some G-Shock work, right?
Yeah, hey,
some Casio.
I'm in.
But that in a heirloom over under.
Mm.
I think there's a couple of things I want.
Yep.
Do you have
I'm
an
a-
over under?
I don't, but I work
What
with a
shotguns do you
brand.
have?
I've got a
'Cause
Stoger
you
and a
started
Browning.
doing some. Okay, you started doing some fowl hunting, right?
Yep. Yeah, I actually just got back. January, I photographed and did a little hunting in Missouri, waterfowl. Went straight from there to Montana. Did Canada geese and mallards up there. And that was all for Browning.
Okay.
So
Yeah. And what shotgun is it?
it is the new Maxxis 2 12 gauge semi-auto. Loved it. Now I've heard some
Super smooth.
Oh man, it was awesome. I've heard a few people complain about it, but their complaints was on it jamming, and I was like, I have not.
Every full auto
It
runs the
it's
chance
the potential, yes,
of jamming. That's just.
but there's
real
also
world.
a part of me that, like, when I hear that, I'm like, all right. So I had me and 4 other guys all had shotguns for these shoots.
the same gun.
Yep, and I was like, not a jam the single time. And I
They
was like,
sent you 4 the same gun.
well, it's 5
shoot?
total because I got one as well.
Ooh.
And it was kind of like, how much of it is the gun versus user error?
I mean, how much user error is there in pulling the trigger?
Generally
for
not,
gun-
but
For a
It-
gun,
it
there's
just-
not a whole lot of user
no,
error.
but
with that.
there definitely can be.
Yeah.
And it just kind of makes me think of like, well, and again, you know, with any type of product, you can always have a fluke as
Yeah.
well.
Everybody does.
And so it's just
Best
kind of
cars
like,
in the world, somebody buys the same thing and they're like, it's in and out of the shop. You never have a problem.
And you can have the best product in the world. There's somebody that's going to have an issue with it.
Yeah.
So, but my experience with the gun was phenomenal.
Hmm.
And we put a lot of rounds through all those guns and never had a single problem. So, and Browning makes really good stuff.
Browning makes good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I'm thinking about Brunelli potentially as an over under.
Benelli.
Benelli, excuse me.
Brunelli.
Brunelli. There's a couple other companies that I'm looking at to get something, but would love to do some fowl hunting, I think, this year. And I
Yep.
still need to get that deer hunting rifle that you've been telling me about.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know, I have land now.
I do know you have land
Yeah.
now.
And so
I'm still waiting to come out there.
There's no excuse not to.
Have you been hunting out there yet?
No, because we bought it right after. Well, actually, technically, the last week of deer season, but
Right.
schedule wise, I just didn't have the time to get out there. But we have trail cameras out there, and so far, the only thing besides one deer that has shown up have all been bucks, which is weird. Which is really weird, actually.
Yeah.
And then with the snow, we got out there and we didn't get them on camera, but we found the area of the land that has turkey tracks everywhere.
No kidding.
And turkey season's just around the corner.
There we go.
So,
All right, let me know.
you just got to get your hunting license, and then we'll go get on some turkeys.
Who needs that?
Yeah, who needs to be
Do you
legal?
need a hunting license to actually go with?
No,
If I
like
just sit up there with you.
yeah, you can go as long as you don't have a firearm with you. And so, because technically, to get your hunting license, you got to go through the hunter ed thing, which is, if you grew up around
Which is
guns
all
and-
online right now, right?
Yeah, which actually I would recommend doing because it's just a little easier. Because if not, you go sit in a classroom either all day long or like 2 evenings. But it's worth doing because even if you've been around guns your whole life, it just kind of reiterates like gun safety and then safely shooting at an animal. And they go over kind of all the basics that you should know if you're going to be going out with a firearm.
Do you have to use the bathroom?
I'm good right now. But,
Okay, I do. I'll be
I can
right
almost
back.
always
Just sit
use
here.
the bathroom.
I've still just got that.
Speaking of the fire department,
Yep, there they go.
always ruining
days.
everything.
I've just still got that 4th grade teacher bladder.
Yeah, well,
Actually, no,
you've
I
traveled
don't.
with me. I pee and poop like 5 billion times a day, so it's just it is what it is.
Oh, there it is. The first time
There it
poop was
is.
said on the podcast. I
I'm
knew
glad
it
to be the
would you.
first.
You also don't use urinals.
No, I hate urinals.
Let's get right into this.
Let's
You
talk about
weirdo.
my trauma. I hate it because it's like
There's
when
trauma.
when you use a urinal as a dude. Like I just feel
Which
like it's
are the main people that use
yeah,
urinals.
yeah. If a female can use it, that's impressive.
I mean-
but it literally, I just feel like it just splatters off and gets like all over you, and I'm just like, that's so gross.
It does. You wear shorts, and this is probably the first time I've seen you wearing pants.
It
In
is a
years.
rarity.
So
It is
yeah,
a
especially
rarity.
somebody who always wears shorts.
You know,
I can
the
see
older and more
the
mature
splatter.
I have got,
The uglier your legs have gotten.
the wrinklier and veinier my legs have got. So I like to cover.
Those spider
No.
veins all over.
I still wear shorts 99% of the
Yeah.
time.
And you just don't like the splatter. I mean, nobody likes the splatter.
No, yeah, it just kind of grosses me out a little bit.
It's
and
sterile.
So I'm just like,
Urine that comes out of your body is sterile, right?
It's still gross. And the other thing is other people's urine's in there, and you not 100% that some of that splash could be coming from that. Because half the time
You don't pre-flush?
guys are gross,
Guys are so gross.
and I'm
Let's
just
be
like,
honest. Guys'
yeah.
bathrooms
Are
are
nasty.
nasty.
yeah. And like, because I'm one of those, like, because obviously I prefer to use the regular toilet, and I'm like, if
The
I
regular
if I
toilet.
happen to get a little splatter on there, I'm going to take a big old thing of toilet paper and I'm going to wipe it down for the next
Of
guy.
course, we're not
'Cause,
animals.
yeah, but a lot of guys are.
I know.
Because that is not reciprocated a lot of the
It's
time.
like some guys walk into the stall
and just
it's-
intentionally pee
and say, like,
everywhere.
close their
Yeah.
eyes and then jump
Yeah.
around.
Well, there's sometimes like you get in there and there's poop in places like I'm like, how did that get there? Like it literally had to have been on your hand, and you've been like smear. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? You know, that is one of the benefits of the fire department. Is generally speaking, it makes you a very clean person. Like
Okay.
Elizabeth, when me and her got married, she was like, you might be the cleanest man I've ever known. And I was like, well, when you're kind of like drilled into you, because it's very much like,
Always like clean up after yourself in the kitchen.
oh yeah, and
after
it's like
everyone-
every morning when you get to the station, like usually the first thing you do is you're mopping the floor, you're cleaning the bathrooms, you're like you have to make up your bed when you get up in the morning. Like it's just all these things that you have to do, and you get to the point where you just get used to doing it, and then you get to the point where messes really start to bother you, and it's like you just try to stay on top of it.
Yeah.
And so
Well, I think that's the same I've heard for the military.
yeah, probably. Well, and they
You're
always say
drilled
the
into
fire
that.
department's a paramilitary organization, which that's questionable.
That sounds like you're going to have a
But-
coup.
yeah.
Paramilitary organization.
But-
we got to take them out.
But it does very much. Which, granted, I know some nasty firefighters. You're going to have that in everything. But for the most part, generally speaking, they're very clean people because it's just drilled in you all the time.
Yeah. It doesn't take that long to pick up a new habit like that. You just got to stay on it.
No, and after like you get used to kind of like being neat and clean, you're like, I kind of like this actually.
I would agree.
And
That's
so-
that's one of the main reasons why I got married.
Yep.
And I love her.
Yeah. Yeah. I married her for her cleanliness.
No, but that is, come on. That's an amazing thing. So many years of bachelorhood and then you finally get married.
Yeah.
Like for me,
It's like
dirty
culture shock.
bachelor. Oh man, it is. you got to be changed. And having a baby is even more so. I realized that, I mean, getting married, especially if you didn't live together before, that is a big change. But having a baby is like 30 times that.
Yeah. Wait, do you have multiples? then you feel like you're cleaning all the time.
I've been told that I got to cool my heels on the next one.
Yeah.
Because
I heard that directly just a few days ago.
I thought I was kind of like when Bridget was like, I think it's time to start trying. I was kind of like, oh man, I went from thinking I was going to have 7. I'm one of 5.
Yeah.
And I was thinking I was going to have 7 kids.
Ooh.
By the time I was, like 18 kind of deal. I was all about it. And then as I've gotten older, I'm like, man, sleeping is nice. And just feeling a little bit older and wasn't too sure. And now that we had Ruby, I'm like, okay, so what we doing here? We doing this thing?
We need a game plan.
We going? I just love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And my siblings and I didn't have much of a difference in age, which was nice, except for my youngest brother. And so, you just had friends and holidays were amazing, having siblings and all this stuff. And I just want to kind of go. But Bridget has told me she'll let me know.
Yeah. Yeah.
She'll let me know.
For on her than
she'll
you.
let me know when we're back in business.
Yeah.
But I was really rooting for twins.
Yeah.
I figure God gave us 2 hands.
Well, it's kind of
should
like
be the norm, right?
If you've got twins, obviously when they're little and stuff, it's probably pretty stressful.
Probably.
But you kind of knock it all out at the same time.
That's true.
Which is kind of beneficial as well.
I am also I'm thinking every time that Ruby wakes up, I'm just like, man, if I'm doing this when I'm 40.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the biggest thing with me and Elizabeth.
Which is right around
the potential of us having kids, because all my kids are from a previous marriage, unfortunately. But I'm 38, and it's kind of like, I'm like, man, I don't want to be 60 and still raising a kid. It's not the end of the world.
But you don't want to be 61 and still raising a kid.
Yeah, that's true. So it's kind of like, well, if we're going to decide to do this, we need to really start talking about it.
Yeah, lots of folks are just having babies later and later now.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like,
and it's kind of like
we were in the hospital, and I forget who mentioned this to us, but they're like, "Yeah, so your next child will probably be a geriatric child." And I was like, I was like, what is a
what
geriatric?
Is that?
What is it? You
like,
call my baby stupid?
Babies are coming out older and older all the time.
It's gonna come out Benjamin Button style. This 99-year-old baby. No, but I think it's woman.
My kid was born with his driver's license.
If the woman is, I think it's over 35, it's considered a geriatric pregnancy.
Yeah.
And I was like, man.
Yeah, it definitely is definitely a bigger deal for women than it is for guys, obviously.
Yeah, no kidding.
The age thing. I mean, I figured that out through my medical training.
Adam is spitting facts over here. The bigger deal for a woman.
If you would like to know more, you can call me.
You must have been an EMT. Yeah, for sure. But so I'm 3 years older than Bridget, and so I'm going to be hitting that 40, earlier than her, which is also math.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, exactly. So dropping some real info here today. But yeah, I don't want to be too old, but I'm also kind of in this like, man, I already kind of feel old.
Yeah.
So I'll get going on this, but that's just kind of the way it works.
Age is just a number, Seth.
Mm-hmm. Tell me that when you're 90.
I like to use the word mature.
You do,
which
because
people
you don't hear it very
reference
often.
Me as, you know, but whatever.
Yeah, your mom's really nice like that.
Yeah, she's so sweet.
But
I love my mom.
So you get what were we talking about? Hunting and photography and all that other stuff. Yeah, exactly. So you're still doing more and more of that world, more and more of those shoots, and it just didn't really stop for you during all of
which is funny because
and everything.
In the last 2 years, especially with the whole pandemic thing, I'd say 90% of the commercial work has been in the hunting world. Which is weird because it's kind of like one of those things, like if you look at my portfolio, you still don't see a ton of it just because a lot of the stuff when you shoot it, I can't release it just because it's like one of the Browning shoots was a new line of camo that hasn't released yet, which I think they just released it. But it's like those images can't be put out in public yet. And so it's kind of like
Is it on their Instagram?
They actually just posted one the other day with our old buddy Matt Jones.
Matt Jones.
He's famous now.
The tattooed wonder.
Yep. So yeah, and some of the turkey stuff that I shot last spring is just now starting to roll out a little bit. I think it's Browning Firearms.
And then we'll look up Brunelli after that.
Brunelli, there it is. No, that's trail cam. There it is. All right, let's see here. That one right there, the snow.
I thought you were going to say that baby on there.
Yeah, the baby I shot that one. So
that's beautiful.
I don't know what that red dot above Matt is because that's not on the file. So I don't know if
Uh-oh.
I don't know how that happened. I don't know what it is. Because as soon as I saw it, I was like, "What is
We
that
got a
red
photo
dot?"
of an alien here.
Yeah. Yeah, so actually that is the new camo that is just starting to release. And
On the right side here, top right.
that's the pattern we had. I did not shoot that image. Oh, that's the video.
Ooh,
Actually, it might be the release video for the camo. I don't know.
Oh man.
it's got to be.
We need to start pitching you on some of these video things
Well,
there, Seth,
I'm ready.
so we can
I'm
just
ready.
knock it all out.
I'm going to be shooting as soon as we can kind of close up some of these projects, and if we ever stop getting as busy as we are, I want to build up some of that portfolio, automotive and outdoor.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just go do a couple because man, we've been getting some great images. We've been doing some really good commercial work, and I want to start doing more of that stuff and building up this side. So that's some of what we're doing with local features, is trying to just have a little, because this is really the end is this. As a creative, the only way you can have any creative control or control at all is you have to build an audience.
Yeah.
You can do that through social media. You can do that through something like this, creating your own brand that's actually putting out content that you want. But I realized that a lot of what I do in the commercial video world, sometimes you're 3 to 4 people away from the money making, the person who's making the decisions about the money. Whether it's going from, the CEO, going through the CFO, going through the internal marketing person, going to the external marketing organization that's coming to you, that's having to work all the way back up for the OKs.
Yep.
And it works.
Yeah.
And you could definitely make a living doing it, especially if you're really good. But man, you want to actually start producing something that people want to see, so that you can find your audience, so you can build that up bigger and bigger. And then you actually have some freedom. Yeah. And then you don't have to go, hopefully you're not groveling at all if you've been in this industry for any amount of time. You shouldn't be.
Well, there's a lot of people that do, though.
Well,
because you hear the whole thing about the starving artist, which to me, talking about just the grind of things, that's an excuse.
Do you consider, so maybe, do you consider, Tim, who was on here before, we actually even got into some of what is art.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's definitely, because I think the starving artist element.
I think that's an excuse, personally. You should not be starving.
Well,
we can get into that if you want to.
But so what I'm going to say is, so there is a level of being an artist that is okay, why I exist is to push the envelope.
Yep.
That's not you and me.
No.
That is the kind of person that is so obsessed with actually creating something new, the new sound, the new image, the new dance, whatever it is, that element of art, that they are so far ahead of the curve that nobody's even ready for it yet. Yep. There can be a tremendous amount of money in that. There can also be starving dumb. You know what I mean?
Well,
but that's not where you and I are.
No.
You and I wouldn't be doing this if we weren't making some money.
Exactly. But there's also that level of, if you're the artist that's kind of pushing the limit, and then you're making the excuse of, I'm broke all the time. And it's like, well, sometimes you've got to do some of the art that gets you paid, that allows you the time to actually go do the thing that pushes the limit. So you can't really...
You can, or if you're just so obsessed with it.
Then, but don't complain about it.
Well, was Picasso over here painting, kids' baby photos, to pay for that?
Not that we know of.
But maybe so.
It's also... It seems like there's a lot of stories of famous artists that now's works are worth ridiculous amounts of money that they never saw a dime from it.
Sure.
And it's
there's plenty of artists.
In a certain way, seems a little unfair
Yeah.
to that artist, obviously.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of things that I shoot. Like, if I could shoot landscapes and wildlife all the time and that be it, I would probably totally do that, because that's what I love. And now, granted, I make a good amount of money off that through the print sales, but I'm also, from a business standpoint, I'm like, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
You enjoy it both, though.
I do.
That's the thing.
And I do enjoy the commercial side of it as well. But, obviously there's the plus side of when you're going out shooting wildlife and landscape, there's no pressure there. It's like, I'm just going to spend time, wait for the light to be right, search around for the perfect composition. And we've had that whole conversation of forever, I was the one that is if the image is not technically perfect,
I remember that monkey photo.
Discarded.
We were in where were we? We were in something Hole, Jackson Hole.
Yeah.
We're in Jackson Hole,
The
Wyoming. Which
minivan, DVD
if you
player, and
if
Little
you have
Caesar
never
pizza.
That's true. We went and rented an X-Men or James Bond or something
I
like
don't
that.
even
Sat
remember.
in
Out of a red box.
Weighed our out of a red box in Jackson
Dodge
Hole,
Caravan.
Wyoming, one of the most expensive places in the U.S. It's
Not
gotta
when
be.
you're Seth and Adam.
Went and got ourselves a $7 Little Caesars pizza, a large each.
Yep.
Put down that tiny little 6-inch flat screen TV in the back of the minivan. Laid out our sleeping bags and
In
had
the
a
Snake
good old
River
time.
overlook.
There you go.
Got snowed in.
That was good times. But we were there and we were in. It is art studio after art studio after high-end art after high-end art. Some of these pieces, $40,000,
Yeah.
for some of these $20,000 photos.
I'd say 20
friends
and
I
30
think.
is probably an average
20 and 30 is
price.
probably an average. So, and all of these people come from all over the world to get outdoor,
Celebrities.
Western
Yep.
themed art there. And there's this one photo that's of this monkey that's like smiling or something like going like into this camera. Huge piece. And it's like listed for like $15,000
Yeah,
or
it's
something like
crazy.
that. And Adam's like, it's not even in focus.
True story.
And I'm like, Adam, it doesn't matter if it's in focus. It's the emotion
Yeah.
that's coming through this little monkey.
That actually did help me out a lot, though, that
I
whole
know.
conversation.
You're welcome.
Because it was a lot of times, like, had I shot that image, I'd be like, it's not sharp, delete.
And this
Actually, I
person's-
wouldn't completely delete it. But this person's got it for sale for $15,000.
$15,000. Which one you want to be? No, but obviously, can a huge landscape photo like what you're doing, can that be out of focus? No, that's
No.
got to be tic-tac sharp, obviously, because that's what you're looking at. And that's where it is, depending on the kind of art that is being relayed,
Yeah.
completely dictates,
Yeah. The technical side of it.
yes, and what that technical element needs to be.
Yeah.
There have been a couple of things that we've done for some of, the more lifestyle brand photo video that we've done. You even see it like in some like Nike, Adidas and stuff like that. It's more outdoors. Like they love an out of focus image.
Yeah.
Because it's movement over
Yes, just the
form.
emotion that the image
Exactly.
puts out.
They get with that. But so you having a
getting
good time,
emotional
David?
over there?
I am. I'm having a
David,
great time.
David is crying over here. It's like
He's
light
getting
bulbs going
emotional. He's like,
on. But it's depending on, so this high level art,
mhm.
that, I think there's a bunch of these artists. Wasn't Rembrandt even one of those? No, who's the guy that cut off his ear?
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh. Van Gogh, I think, was one of those ones that was not
about
really
going
recognized
dark.
in his day.
Going to cut off my pinky after.
Starving artist.
As long as this is not my shutter finger, I'm
Did you
good.
hear? There is a guy. Speaking of starving artists, there's a guy who is, from what I heard, he's on TikTok, and he was depressed, and he heard that raw meat can cure depression. So he has been going to Whole Foods every day and eating raw meat and live. Can you live stream on TikTok? No, you don't live stream on TikTok. You just recording himself.
Yeah.
So it's like raw beef. He's done raw chicken.
I had raw nilgai in Texas.
Raw what?
Nilgai.
What's that?
It's like a.
Neil Guy.
I think they are originally from India, if I'm not mistaken. And then
Who Neil Guy is?
Yeah, this really Neil guy. No, so it's like
That's
I guess it's
illegal.
like a large antelope style creature. Apparently, there's a lot of them in Texas now.
There's some wild stuff in Texas.
Yeah, Texas has got a lot of weird creatures.
It's
but
our
they
little,
have you
it's
can
our
hunt
little
them.
Australia.
Yeah, so you
Texas.
can hunt them in Texas. But there is a restaurant in Texas. I think Jesse Griffith is the chef. He's been on like the whole Meat Eater podcast and all that. But he's got a little restaurant there in Austin. And like when I went for the shoot for the Airhead Sports Group, I was like, I have to eat here because he's known for his wild boar. But then he also has nilgai, and they had nilgai ceviche.
Ooh,
Oh
what?
my gosh, it was so
Ceviche with a red meat?
Yes, it was. People do it with deer meat. But he had nilgai. It was an appetizer. And at first, everybody, like, because there's a group of us that went, and everybody's like, I don't know about.
Wait. So you can see like legitimate red rare meat in this little
Yeah,
ceviche?
so he cubes it.
Okay.
And then obviously, I guess it's lime juice, and then there's like onion and pepper cut up in there with it.
And the thinking behind ceviche is I know at least with fish,
Technically, the acid
is supposed to kill all the bacteria.
Yes, yeah. So it's kind of like it's cooked because the acid from the citrus, I guess,
It's not cooked.
It's not cooked,
It's
but
not
it's
cooked.
like it's killing whatever. Anyways, at first everybody's like, I don't know about this, and then once you put a bite in your mouth, you're like, I cannot get enough of this.
Wow.
It was really good. So, yeah, that was my story of raw
Wait.
meat.
So it's like beef? I mean, or is it more like venison? Where's it on the
No,
spectrum?
I would say it was probably more beef flavored.
Okay.
Probably.
That probably helped.
Yeah. But I also
Venison
I
is
also eat a
strong.
lot of wild game. That I think that's a misnomer though.
Okay,
It
you have
all
some
depends.
venison ceviche,
Uh-huh.
and you tell me it's not strong.
I,
Venison is a strong flavor.
it depends. To me, it's all in how you process it. If it's processed poorly, it will have a strong flavor.
Why would that matter?
So partially like a deer, it's the fat that has the gamey taste. So like when every deer I have ever shot, I have done all the processing for, like every single bit of it. So when it hits our plate at home, I am the only human being that has ever touched that meat. And I painstakingly cut every bit of fat off that thing.
Huh.
And I have yet to have a person try it and be like, man, that tasted gamey. Like most people, if you didn't tell them what it was, they would have thought it was
So it's
beef.
a very neutral flavor after
Mhm.
that?
Yep. So, and I also age the meat. So generally, I'd love to dry age it. I just don't have a way to do that. But so what I'll do is once I quarter the animal out, I'll put it in a cooler for a week to 2 weeks, and I just keep fresh ice in it and keep the port open so you don't ever sit in water. And you just keep it there for about a week to 2 weeks. 2 weeks is actually better.
You age it in the ice.
Yeah, in the cooler. And like I said, I'll prop it up so the ice melts, the water drains out, so it's never just sitting in water. And then I'm constantly putting fresh ice in it. And then from that point is when I'll start to quarter or take like a hind quarter and start cutting the different, slabs off, and then freeze it from there.
And
And
that just takes the gaminess out of it.
Mhm. I have yet to have a gamey piece of deer meat.
Well, you have yet to feed me one.
That's true.
So I guess we'll find out.
I've got
then,
some
won't
good
we?
back straps.
Ooh.
And that's the
I know
best
you like
cut on
those.
that thing.
And I also know you like some heart.
Yep. Elizabeth is not a big fan of the heart. The heart, so it is not gamey at all. It very much, really the only way to describe it has a very rich, kind of irony flavor, which
Yeah.
makes sense, But again, I'm a firm believer, everybody that ever talks about wild game being gamey, it boils down to how that meat has been treated. It's how it's been processed, even how it's cooked. Like Canada goose. Well, and now granted, part of it depends on the animal and what that animal's been eating. So like I've yet to eat a Canada goose from the East Coast. Everybody says they're terrible. I would like to try that to know if that's actually
Man, I know where
true.
you can get some.
Well, part of the problem is geese over here spend a lot of time in ponds and they're just eating.
And golf courses.
Yeah. And so, which granted, if that's what they're eating on, they probably don't taste the greatest. Canada geese from Montana, though, their breast meat is as good as any ribeye you've ever eaten. And literally the first time I brought some home and cooked it, Elizabeth, all 3 of the boys were like, we'd rather have that than steak.
What?
And it's like,
Wow.
Wait, so how'd you cook the breast meat?
So basically I did it like I would do a ribeye in a cast iron pan.
Is it that red?
Yes, it's red meat.
No kidding.
And so cast iron pan, high heat, and I pan sear it.
Sure.
And then,
Gordon Ramsay style?
turn down the heat.
Yep.
And then I throw garlic, thyme, and butter, and then I baste it.
There you go.
And then,
So just like a steak.
just like a steak.
Beautiful.
And literally all of them were like, we'd rather have that than ribeye.
Is that an easy ticket to pull?
Yeah, waterfowls. Now you have to have a federal stamp for that as well. So you got to buy your local hunting license for wherever you're at, and then there's a federal waterfowl stamp you have to buy, which is I think like $25. But because they migrate, they're considered a federal game species.
Cool.
So, but they're amazing. Like I said, I've yet to eat one from here. I'd like, because my thing, like I've heard so many people say, oh, they're not good, but I've also heard many people be like, well, venison's gamey. And I was like, well, probably because you've had poorly processed game meat.
Burn.
So, because like even my mom, like the idea of eating a deer, she's
Yep.
like, no, not going to happen. Well, I think it was last Easter, I had saved some backstrap and I fixed it. And I was like, just try it. And she ate it and she was like, it bothers me knowing that it's a deer. She's like, but if I didn't know it was deer, it was really, really good. And it's like, it's just kind of in a lot of people's head. And granted, I've had
So how'd you figure out the whole thing about the fat having the gaminess?
meat eater.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually remember listening. I don't know if it was one of the podcasts or it was one of the things Steve Ranella, the main guy, in like passing conversation mentioned it's the fat that is gamey.
Huh.
And so I literally started painstakingly cutting off every bit of fat I could, and I've yet to have a gamey piece. And I've ate everything from a doe to an old buck, which generally like your older bucks typically are going to be gamier just because.
All that muscle.
Yeah, and the meat's usually a little tougher because it's an old deer that's been running through the woods for who knows how long. And that maybe is a lot of people's big complaint on gaming is generally is tougher meat, but it's like you're talking about an animal that's literally been running for its life for years. So obviously the meat's going to be a little tougher.
But let's be honest, deers around here are not running for their life, except for
Well,
us.
I mean,
there's nothing out here hunting them.
coyotes will.
Coyotes will take down a deer.
Yeah. So,
good- like one that's not
coyotes,
sick.
a lot of times, what they'll do. So, a deer is really good at running fast speeds and short distances, whereas a coyote has the stamina and they run in packs too. So, they'll literally just run a deer to death till it just exhausts itself, and then it's an easy kill. Now, is that happening all the time? Probably not. So, generally, where we are, for the most part, humans are the biggest predator, and probably not even hunters. Probably more cars than anything.
Man, so many.
Yeah.
It's like hitting a brick wall
Mm-hmm.
when you hit one of those big deer.
Yeah, it will tear a vehicle up.
Have you hit a deer?
I have not hit a deer.
I've hit a
thankfully.
bear before.
You've hit a bear.
Not intentionally. Literally.
Did the bear hit back?
The Interstate 40, a mile out from the Tennessee line, 11 o'clock at night, come around the bend, and it's just in the middle of the highway. And
Black bear.
It's either hit the bear or literally go careening off the side of the mountain. So,
Bad choice either way.
yeah, so the bear is what it is. And
This
literally,
is a big bear.
yeah, and at the time, this was years ago, I had a Dodge Durango. That's what we were driving. And I hit
that's gonna
that
help.
thing, hit it, and went up and over it. And literally pulled off the side of the road, off of 40 over onto the side. And it looked like I hit a telephone pole, like perfect dent.
Sure.
But the only damage was the bumper and the radiator.
And the
Other
bear
than
got
that,
up and ran away?
Nope, it was still there. And so I called Highway Patrol because I was like, I'm going to have a report for insurance.
Sure.
And so he gets out there, and I was like, well, is there any way I can just like take the bear? And he was like, no, we actually can't let you do that. And I was like, well, what are you going to do with it? You're probably just going to throw it off the side of the highway.
What do they do
somewhere.
with it?
I don't know.
You were car hunting it.
Yeah. And so, but apparently that particular stretch, he was like, it happens all the time because on one side of the highway is a bear sanctuary. The other side, I guess, is all like private land. And he said a lot of the people over there put bait piles
Sure.
out, and the bears smell it and try to cross the highway to get to the bear. And the next thing you know, they're getting
Brutal.
plastered by vehicles, which is a shame.
That's a shame.
So,
Well,
and
they-
I just kind of feel like it's such a waste too to not, if like somebody wants it, let them have it. Because as any type of animal, if they're hit by a car, as long as their guts don't pop, it's no different than shooting them. Like the meat's still viable if you if you do it right away, not if it's been sitting out there for
You were
30
going to eat
days.
this bear?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
How long ago was this?
Oh man.
Like, did you know what you were doing? You're
Not
just gonna
really.
figure it
At the
out?
time,
Yeah,
I didn't. I was
exactly.
just going to
I'll
figure it out.
out.
Which, in all honesty, half the stuff I do in life, I just figure it out.
That's true.
So I'm still figuring out this
That's
photography
half
thing.
of what being an adult
I
is,
literally
think.
just took my camera off automatic for the first time ever last week.
Well, you
I'm just
finally
kidding.
stopped shooting with your iPhone. too.
Yeah. Well, I had the old flip phone that I used forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can see that in the resolution on the
Real good
website.
photos out of that Razor
Mhm.
you had there.
Yeah, but you had that little keyboard to make it easy to text.
Well, that's good. I heard they brought the Razor back. Wasn't that a thing?
I don't know.
A new
At
version of
Outdoor
the Razor?
Retailer last week, I saw a guy for the first time with the phone that flips open.
Yep, the Samsung flip
Yeah,
or
and I was
whatever.
like, I'll be honest, like showing a portfolio, that's kind of nice.
Oh my
Although, I mean, I
gosh.
take my iPad, so that's way bigger than
yeah,
that. But
and nothing would get you off of iPhone.
no.
You're not going to Samsung
No,
or anything else.
absolutely
I did
not.
Samsung once.
Yeah, no.
It was okay.
Yeah, I'm Apple through and through.
Yeah, they got you.
Yeah,
they
they
lock
did.
you in. It's the operation system
Mm-hmm.
and how everything. I mean, I'm PC on what I edit on, and then I'm iPhone, for the film.
They
But
locked me into the point I bought stock. So
oh my gosh, there you go. You should have.
yeah, well, I'm like, I should get a little
That's
bit
a
of
good
money
stock
back
back.
from that.
Yeah,
So,
we'll see.
yeah.
But the iMessage is the main reason I've got an iPhone.
Yeah. Well, I just like how everything syncs together. Like from my laptop to iPhone to iPad, it all, and I don't have to do anything. It just links up by
The
itself. Like, it's
ecosystem.
magic.
Do you have the Apple? What's their home thing?
Oh, no. It's like the kind of like their version of Alexa.
Exactly.
HomePod or something.
Yeah, HomePod.
Yeah. I have, well, since I don't currently have a home.
You got a trailer
Maybe-
pod?
Maybe one day. They got one for studio apartment pods.
Man, there's a part of me that wants to automate my home and bring it up like to the 22nd century, whatever, 21st
It
century.
makes me nervous.
Dude, you know they're. I mean, they've got, what was that? Amazon got sued majorly because they were
listening in to
they were
people?
listening in.
Yeah.
Alexa is waiting for
Yeah.
anything to go on, and they were just storing
Yeah.
information from
That
what
makes
people
me
were
nervous.
saying.
But on the same sense,
Come
I'm
on,
kind
you
of like,
want Jeff
I'm like,
Bezos listening into
if
your
somebody's
house?
listening to my house, they're going to get real bored real fast. They're like, all I hear is a keyboard clicking over and over. It's 3 a.m. What could he possibly be doing?
They'll be going, did you know that all the fat is where the gaminess comes from? This man, that's all he talks about. He said it for the 34th time.
I might be in an Amazon podcast and don't even realize.
But how is that legal?
It shouldn't be.
Well, no,
Well, that's like the whole Ring
no, but you give
doorbell
them
thing.
permission. You
Well,
give
that's
them
true.
permission.
Yeah. Well, but that's you giving them permission is pretty sketchy too of how they get that permission.
Well,
Because
it's-
most people don't realize they're giving them permission.
When you tell Instagram that yes, they can monitor and have access to your microphone and camera,
Yeah,
that means they
crazy.
get access to your microphone and camera.
Yeah.
They just get access to it.
Yeah.
And it's all just in that little. Would you like to enable the microphone so
Yeah.
that you can like?
And how many
record
people
stuff?
actually even read that anyway?
No one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's how it's only becoming.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, and
for here.
it's just like any.
Do you
like,
have Siri on your phone?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, do you leave it on?
I don't know. I don't
do.
use Siri very
I can
often,
tell.
so it probably is. That's the thing is like half the time I just
Siri is using you if you're not using
probably
Siri.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah. I call her Brenda. Like when she starts,
That's a
like when she's
response
telling
back.
directions, I'm like, "Shut up, Brenda."
She's getting sassy.
I did get that from Matt Jones though, so I have to
I
give him
believe
credit
it.
for that.
But that has to change at some
Yeah.
point.
But I'm just kind of like all like you can get the door locks that you can unlock with your phone and stuff.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm sorry, anything that's connected like that can be hacked.
For
And
sure.
I'm like, so now I've just allowed the locks of my door that somebody could figure out how to hack and unlock it and just come on in. I was like, I don't know that I like that.
convenience.
Yeah. And
Actually,
I'm not a
is
conspiracy
that even
theorist
that
at
convenient?
all. Yeah. I was like, is it that hard to pull out your key and
Yeah,
stick
exactly.
in the door?
Come
Like,
on.
yeah. So I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, but
Yeah,
there's
right.
some things that I'm just like,
That's not. But
we need more guns.
but that's Brunelli sponsor.
Bro Nelly. Dun, dun,
But
dun.
that's not even conspiracy theory.
Mm-mm.
Now,
Well, there were things
It was-
forever that was conspiracy theory that come out. It's
It-
like, turns out we
it
were right to
was
begin
8
with.
years ago if you said like, "Hey man, my iPhone is listening in on me," and now Amazon's getting sued because they got a database of the things you're saying at your home.
Yeah.
Did you hear what they were storing too?
No.
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
It's not the kind of stuff you want stored
Yeah.
when it's something that's just sitting in your house.
Did I tell you about the friend of mine that she worked for Google? I met her at Outdoor Retailer. She's got her own business now, but I don't really remember what she did at Google. But she talked about there's this big board that like updates all the time, like where you can just walk in and see. And she said so it's showing like everybody like the most searched things. And she said, so we don't necessarily see like who searched what. You're just seeing what's getting searched. a
Oh,
lot.
they know who searches.
Well, I'm sure
what,
they
though.
do.
They
But
do.
like as far as the board up, like where everybody's walking in and seeing it, it don't say, Seth Wingate search for this. It just is showing the top searches. And she was like, let's just say the top searches were very disturbing.
Oh, sure.
And she's like, and not like what you would think people would be searching for that's disturbing, like super disturbing.
And it's the most people are searching for that? No way.
According to her, it was. And she was like, it kind of makes you lose trust in humanity.
Wow. Well, didn't Google pull porn off for a while?
I don't know.
I think they pulled it
But
off of
it's
their
like,
search engines.
but like some of that would be kind of probably what you would think was like the typical
And
thing
it's
being
not even
searched.
that.
It's like worse. And she was like, it literally, she said, to the point of like when you walk in every day and you see it, you're just like, what is wrong with humanity?
See, but that is the argument for control through that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But It's actually just the accessibility
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
And so I guess that is the argument. It's like, well, if we're going to leave everything open, should you be able to search for bombs?
Yeah.
Like how to make a bomb or something like that. I don't know.
This is not the direction I thought this conversation was going.
It's like on the one hand, you'd say no, but then do you really want your government to be able to say, or
it's a
huge
fine
tech
line
company telling you what you can look for and not look for?
Well,
but they're already doing it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like we're at the point now where they're already really censoring people. And it's like, well, if you're able to censor that, why are you not able to take off some of this other really disturbing stuff? Like, you totally can. Like, obviously you've shown us you can do that. So if you're going to do it anyway, why are you not doing that?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fine line of like, where do you draw that line?
I don't think it's a line that can honestly be drawn.
Yeah.
It's just a worldview of whether you think that these large tech companies and the government have your best interest in mind, or do you think that everything should just be open and you should? Well, I guess there's still a line there, because there's obviously some things that I don't want anybody searching for and being able to find.
Yeah,
that's got to be. So I guess it is a line somewhere.
Yeah.
But
now that we're getting this, my agent's texting saying abort, abort, abort.
Get out of here!
I gotta go.
We haven't even mentioned anything in particular. Y'all just have to figure out what we're talking about. But what were we talking about?
We've talked
before that.
Hitting a bear with a car.
Yeah. Drilling a bear with your car. Hunting 101.
All the
buy
way
a Dodge
back
Durango.
around the iPhones. But yeah, hitting that bear with your car, eating that meat.
Yeah.
Eating it free range.
Yeah, best meat on the planet.
I do want to go
Doesn't
get some
get cleaner
boar.
than that.
I do want to go hunt some boar with you.
Yes. Well, the good thing with boar, in North Carolina, once you have your hunting license, it is all year, anytime.
Exactly.
Because it's an invasive species, and they cause a lot of problems.
Invasive from where? This is like a Spanish boar?
I'm not sure. Probably Europe initially, when all the settlers come over, they probably brought pig. Because a normal farm pig, if you let it go, it does not take long to become feral. Like, it will literally start growing coarse hair and tusk, like, extremely fast.
Okay. So yeah, they're just pigs that got out.
Yeah,
and they're going.
and they've turned feral. Which, when a pig turns feral, for whatever reason, I don't understand all of it. They start growing coarse hair. They'll start growing tusk, which I guess is just part of the survival strategy.
Same thing happens to us.
And they do become way leaner. You know, you typically, you can get bacon off a wild boar, but generally not as much.
What are you eating then?
Well, you can eat any of the meat. So, the whole animal's edible.
But you're not getting bacon.
You
can make sausage?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, they just
get
way lean. Wild boar's amazing. We had wild boar in Hawaii. Remember that?
Wait, wild boar tacos?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was all wild boar.
Okay, I do remember that now.
Yeah.
They are scary.
Yes. Yeah,
So
that thing wanted to eat you alive.
So the island of Kauai, it wanted to eat you too.
Yeah, that's true.
I
was getting a little closer.
I was just a little bit easier. So the where we were at in Kauai, right? Kauai,
that
the
was
island.
like a week or two after I left the fire department too. Do you remember that?
That was a month. That was a week before I got engaged.
Oh, that was a
big time
of
for
our
both of our
lives.
lives.
Yeah.
Really, that was a week after you left.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because
Out there
remember
for
I had
Dickies Clothing Company.
I had the guy from the fire department call me and ask me if I regretted my decision. I was like, I'm on a beach in Hawaii. No, I don't regret my decision.
No, but I do remember you you feeling really good telling him that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but out there, they not only have wild boar on Kauai, they have, what was it? It was like 2.4 million wild chickens.
Yeah.
And roosters.
At the airport.
Everywhere. At the airport. Everywhere. So, and this occurred to me, I think that might be why, Moana, there's that little chicken there.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, it has to be.
It has to be because there's just, millions of these chickens everywhere. And
You'd
you're not allowed to kill
chickens on the side of the highway.
You're not allowed to kill them, right?
Yep.
And the
that I
roosters
don't
are
remember.
beautiful.
Yeah.
These are like multicolored, exotic, beautiful roosters, except roosters crow at every single hour of every single day. And half the time we were sleeping out in the woods.
Yeah.
And so it's like every 45 minutes, there's a rooster 6 feet away from you crowing.
Yeah. Eventually you get used to it.
It's a paradise.
Yeah.
Well,
we should go back with the
what's the name?
wives.
Zuckerberg bought up a massive area of
I remember that.
because you were telling me that the natives were just like, well, we don't care.
Yeah.
we're hopping the fence and we're going fishing there anyways, right?
Yeah.
you like brought up a whole area that's like a historical like hand down from the native Hawaiians that just go there and fish. Yeah. And so you put up this huge
and
fence.
They still go there and fish.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, we're just going to go fish there anyways. Good for them.
Yep. Absolutely.
I don't know. But I mean, if I could buy up, what is it? It's like 140 acres on Kauai.
Oh, I'd love to have like a bungalow out there.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
We definitely need to make that trip happen with the wives. I don't know if they're in for sleeping in the tent the whole time.
Mine is.
Yeah.
Bridget backpacked.
Mine may take a little convincing.
Oh, yeah. She doesn't. But Bridget backpacked through Montana. She did a 4-day backpacking
trip. Oh, yeah.
Trip.
While pregnant.
7 months pregnant.
Yeah, that's legit.
7.5 months pregnant.
Yeah.
She would. I don't know. I'm not going to say she enjoyed it, but we look back on it now.
That's hardcore.
Yeah. Sleeping on a little mattress with a 7.5-month kid kicking you in the kidney.
Was that one of my mattresses? Because you borrowed the tent.
No, I've got 2. It was your tent.
Yeah.
It was your tent. You made it happen. Sponsored by Adam Mary Photography.
Bum, bum, bum.
So what's next, man?
Well, I head to Washington next month.
You just got back yesterday, right?
Just got back from Colorado yesterday.
Yep.
I was only home for like a week and a half before that from being in Montana and Missouri.
Yeah.
And then actually Valentine's Day, I head to Washington State.
How do you get away with this?
Well,
how do you get away with this?
I have an amazing wife. She's definitely
because you pull in bank. That's
yeah.
how.
She's like, I married you for your money.
Exactly.
I'm like, okay.
Baby, I go on this shoot and get yourself a G-Wagon. She's like, get out of here.
Yeah. Bye. What are you waiting on? She's booking the ticket. No, I mean, obviously, you know Elizabeth. Like, she's definitely the better half of us two. And I could not do what I do without her. Mm-hmm. Which now, granted, part of it is like when I was at the fire department, technically I was gone from home more then than I am now. Because it's a 24-hour shift and guaranteed 10 to 11 days a month, you're gone. And then on top of that, obviously the fire department doesn't pay terrible, but doesn't pay great. So it's like even when you're not there, you're going out working more. Yep. So like now it's just a concise amount of time. So it's like I may be gone for a week or 2, but then I come home and I might be home for a month or a month and a half. So it's just, I think the hardest part of doing what I do now is just time management. Yep. And trying to make sure when I'm home, I am home. Because obviously still got 3 kids because that's from previous marriage. It's like we can kind of work that out where it's like, well, they're at their mom's when I'm going anyway. So that part actually kind of works out. But on the same sense, it's like if I come home and I instantly go get the kids, it's like, well, then I'm not really spending any time with her. So it's like trying to balance that out where splitting my time to be fair to everybody. So yeah, that's probably the hardest part of everything is just figuring out how to juggle that. And obviously, I'm a relational person. I got a ton of friends and I love to see them and hang out with them. But, there comes a point where it's like you still got to manage the priority of the relationship too. It's like obviously Elizabeth gets the first and then it breaks down to kids and then from there, other friends.
Where am I on that list?
Well,
top 20?
We'll talk later.
Top 50?
We'll talk later.
Top 100?
You're definitely in the top 10, Seth.
Top 10.
Although I feel like we haven't really hung out in a while, and we need to.
Yeah. I'm here.
Yeah.
You even know where I work now.
Yeah.
You know where I work? You know where I live?
I live.
That's all that
I'm just going to start showing up at your house. Bridget probably won't like that.
Oh, we'd love that.
Yeah?
Yeah, we'd love that. Bring some of that, what was it, backstrap?
Backstrap. Yeah, if I show up with food, I'm welcome.
Now, that is exactly true. That is exactly true.
Yeah.
We'd love to have
you. Well, and part of this whole season has been weird because of selling the house and then moving into the apartment until we could decide what we wanted to do.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's basically like an in-law suite.
Yeah.
But we have land now. And
are you going to build there?
That's the plan.
Come on.
We've already got a floor plan kind of drawn out.
Awesome.
Now
Who's doing the building?
I'm probably going to have Matt build it because the man can build anything.
A house?
Yeah. Oh, he's doing remodeling.
He's going to build your 10,000 square foot mansion?
House. Yeah, it's going to take a while, but
it'll take the rest of its life.
No, probably we'll have him build it just because he can build anything. Yeah, and obviously, Matt, if he builds it, it's going to be perfect
quality.
Yeah, there is no halfway doing it. It's done right. So we've got a floor plan that he helped us draw up and come up with. And
is that a fun process?
So far, it has been. Now, granted, everybody I've known that's built their house is like it's super stressful.
That's what I've heard.
And so we're not into the point of building yet. Yeah. But that's kind of always been what we've wanted to do anyway. Of like, we've always wanted land, and we've always wanted just to be able to build what we wanted.
So what do you want with that house?
So
what are some key things?
So I'm a big thing on design and the way, like, that kind of modern-y farmhouse slash
Sure.
like Nordic
Yep.
kind of look.
Yeah.
And nobody
Exposed
around.
wood, big windows.
Yep. Probably a black exterior.
Yep.
Because part of it is like talking about who you're going to build. I was like, there's nobody around here building that. Like, even like the super nice houses you see, it's like if I go to somebody's house that's got like a really nice house, it's like from the outside, you're like, that's it's pretty beautiful house. But then you go inside and I'm like, oh, and there it is. It's the same thing over and over. And I'm like, do no builders or contractors around here, do y'all not travel at all? Do y'all not see there's other ways of building than the typical?
There's some nice houses in Winston.
No,
there's some modern nice houses.
There are
as well.
some.
You just got to get out of your circle,
but not very many.
You're in that in-law suite circle
That's
of
true.
friends.
That's true.
You know, you got to level up.
So yeah.
But he'll do a good job.
He will.
So, but what? So
and
it's
the thing with Matt is he's got the knowledge and the skill set that you pretty much can show him what you want, and he's like, yeah. I can do that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, so
it's mainly design elements that you're like,
yeah.
If we build it, this is how I want it to look and feel.
Exactly. Yeah. And we don't want anything ridiculously big because that's just kind of overkill. But the main thing that both me and Elizabeth wanted was 4-bedroom, and predominantly because we want a place where when friends are traveling or coming through, they have a place to stay.
Yeah.
Because that's been obviously a big part of my life. It's like at this point, I've got literally close friends all over really kind of the world. And it's like, man, it's so nice to be like, oh, I want to go to, wherever. And I say, well, I'll call up such and such and they'll let me crash at their place. And it's like, well, I want to be able to reciprocate that. And it's like, if y'all are ever in North Carolina, like, the truth is we want you to stay. It's like, it's not a burden to us. Like, we want to set up a home in a way that's like, you're free to come.
Yeah.
Hospitality
is a huge thing.
Yeah.
I think something that's changed me a lot in how I view hospitality was when I was working with some Syrian refugees that are here.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you go over to a Syrian family's house.
Yeah.
And it is like
the red carpet rolled out.
It is.
Yep.
And whatever carpet they have, you sit down and you are, and this is not just for me. This is anybody that comes into a house in this type of culture. It is you sit down, somebody disappears into the back room, could be husband, usually the wife, kids, or something like that. Next thing that comes out is coffee.
Yep.
Immediately. You start
that sounds
drinking
like
coffee.
in Kenya.
They go back in there. If you hang around for a little bit, they're going to come out and hang out with you. But if you wait too long, you're going to start smelling something cooking in the kitchen.
Yep.
And they are making, it doesn't matter what time it is, they're making food for you immediately.
Yeah.
And man, I want to have that kind of hospitality. It honestly changes the way you interact with people.
Yeah.
When you know that if you are in there, it's the way it changes how you view people as well.
Yeah.
If somebody's coming in, you are like their guest of honor.
Yeah.
Everybody is. There's going to be something to drink. There's going to be something to eat.
Yep.
You're going to make sure you're comfortable. You get the best seat and all this other stuff. And obviously there's a level of familiarity when someone comes over, like with you. I mean, I'm not trying to make you feel super well, but
you're not getting nothing.
No, but actually we have started changing that.
Yeah.
Where when people come over, my friend David's really good at this as well. It's just like, it is make sure you got everything you need. You got a drink, you got food, are you comfortable? Sit here, and you just make it feel welcome. And that's,
thanks, Seth.
Yeah. And that's really something that I think is amazing and something I've tried to reciprocate as I get older.
Yeah. Well, but I think part of it is like, because obviously knowing you and Bridget, y'all are very similar of like very relational people.
Yeah.
And it's like that literally is even how I've ran my business is build relationship with people, whether it benefits me or not as far as the business side, because at the end of the day, you still get a friendship out of it. And it's like through that, like when you're pitching a brand or whoever, everybody knows you're in business to make money. I mean, that's why you're in business for.
Right.
But it's like people, what I have found is they're not used to you genuinely be concerned for them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, because I've always said, like, as a photographer, there's umpteen million amazing photographers out there. Most will never put the time into it to actually make it a business. But two, my job with a brand is whoever's hiring me, if it's a creative director, marketing director, my job is to make them look good to their boss.
Right.
And at the end of the day is to make their business succeed.
Right.
And if I can do that, the business will come.
Right.
Like, I don't have to sell that. Like, I don't have to be like, I'm just trying to get a paycheck, guys.
Right.
It's like, well, they know you're trying to get a paycheck. That's why you're in business. But if I can make that marketing director look good to his boss,
Right.
and if I can make their bottom line raise because the photos help sell that particular product, that's my job.
Right.
And it's like, to the point of like John from Airheads, I'm in his wedding.
No kidding.
Yeah, he literally like 3 weeks ago, he called me and was like, hey man, would you, I'm getting married.
That's a good
I'd love
guy.
you to be a groomsman.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I just remember like how honored I was that he asked. But when I hung up the phone, I just started laughing. I was like, here's a guy that we randomly met at Outdoor Retailer.
Yeah.
That for a year or two, I just knew him as a friend that turned into him hiring me for the last 3 years, like at least twice a year. And now I'm in his wedding. I was like, well, ultimately that's my goal.
Yeah.
It's like, and if I can get business out of it too, awesome. If not, I've got a great friend.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just feel like it's a better way of doing life. It's a better way of doing business. And in general, you end up with a lot of meaningful people in your life that if we can mutually benefit each other business-wise, awesome. If not, we mutually benefit each other just through having friendships.
Yeah.
And it's like, we want to translate that into our home now of like, you know, because literally every time I go to Colorado, he's who I'm staying with. I'm crashing at his place. And it's like, I want to be able to like, hey man, if you're ever in North Carolina, like you don't even have to ask. Like you've got a place to stay.
Yeah.
You know?
It's slowing down enough to see people as people.
Yeah.
And that can be hard when they start crossing that line into other areas of clients or prospects or whatever. And yeah, it is. And like people are people, and you're going to feel so much more fulfilled in the end treating people that way.
Yeah.
Than, and like you said, I think business comes after that.
Yeah.
Because for people in my position, your position, there is an element that like our product has to be really good. It has to be good images, it has to be good stories.
But that's the easy part.
Well, yeah, maybe. There's a lot of bad photos, a lot of bad video out there. So you have to be good at what you do. But then also you've had the clients, and I know I've had the clients where it's like, yeah, they paid well, but I really don't want to go through that again.
Yeah, not worth it.
You know, and there's definitely people out there who hire creatives like us, and they're like, man, yeah, we got a good product, but I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
And so as much as you can stay relational with people, I think is going to be a win in the end, especially in an increasingly unrelational world.
Yeah. Well, and you deal with, and I'm not going to mention the brand, but
do it. Are they still a client?
No, well, no, they never have been a client. We've talked a lot, and it's like the more you talk to them, it's just kind of like, God, you guys are jerks. And it's like, I don't want to work with, like, even though I know you pay really well and you're a very recognizable brand.
Do you think that's because they got so many people coming after them?
Maybe. But it's kind of like this air of they're in the hunting world, which is unusual actually, because most of the hunting world is pretty chill and laid back. But it's kind of like we're like God's gift to the hunting world. Yeah. And
there's some people that feel that way too.
Yeah.
God's gift to humanity.
That's true.
In every regard.
And it's like, and it kind of comes off that as that air of like, and I'm just like, I don't really want to work with people like that. Like, I want to work with like,
but you would.
I don't know that I would actually.
Really?
Yeah, because it's kind of like it's like sure it would pay well, it'd probably look good in the portfolio, but like at the end of the day, is it really worth it? If like one of their biggest competitors, I do work for, and they're awesome, like super chill, great people. They pay on time, and it's like, man, I've got those guys, so I enjoy working with them. They're cool people. They're good people. I'll just stick with those
but you've
guys.
put in your time to be able to make those kind of decisions.
True.
At one time, it was like, you know what?
I'll take anything I can get.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care
how mean these people are. I don't care if it's going to be 6 months late payment.
I just need to buy a sandwich.
Exactly. I'm starving. You know, and that's part of, I think for basically everybody's got their story about how they put in time to actually be able to make what they want, you know, and that's great, you know, that you're able to be to that point. And that is probably in the end, you want to be looking ahead to be able to say, I get to make that kind of decision.
Yeah.
It's not immediate necessarily for some people, But it is like the right view, hopefully, to eventually have, which is like, you know what? A couple more dollars in the bank is not worth what I go through for this.
Well, and it's kind of like in the outdoor side of the photography world, the big thing is like a lot of people try to pay in gear. And it's like
everybody
initially tries to pay in gear,
Yeah.
which, you know, you hear all this stuff like, don't work for gear. And it's like, well, true, you can't run a successful business off of gear trade. But if you're just starting and you have nothing to show and you have no client list, sometimes you're like, well, it gets me something.
Yeah.
And then I can work up from that. And there's a certain level of, you know, even now, occasionally, if I'm already doing a shoot that I'm getting paid for and there's a brand I would like to work with that I hadn't quite got, I'd be like, hook everybody up with whatever. I'll give you a handful of images that you can literally only use for social media just so you can see what I can do for you.
There you go.
And I typically up front say, but normally this would cost you X amount. So you set that expectation up front.
That's good.
But it's kind of like, you know, you play the game a little bit.
Yep.
And I actually, one of the brands that made tents that kept dragging on and on about doing it. And I was like, listen, if I do it for just tents, I'll be living in that tent. And I was like, my wife is not going to be happy with that, you know? And, you know, for the most part, they understand that. But it's like, you can't fault somebody that's just starting off being like, well, I'm doing it for gear trade. And it's like, well, if you got nothing else to show, it is hard to get a brand to drop thousands of dollars. Yeah. Yeah. And you need to go ahead and have a basic understanding of what the pricing should be and set that expectation up front. It's like, hey, I'll do it this one time, but a shoot like this typically would run you X amount. If you like what I did, the next shoot, that's what it's going to be.
Yep.
And if you set that expectation up front, you can avoid that conversation of later where that brand comes back and it's like, well, you did it for free tents last time. And it's like, well, if you never mentioned it, then that they have a valid point. But if you're like, yeah, but you know, we had the whole and I would recommend doing an email. So there's a documentation of that and be like, well, do you pull up this email from January 1st where I told you, here's how much this shoot would typically run.
Yep.
You know, and then usually most of the time they're like, oh yeah, I actually do remember that.
Yep.
And then you can start negotiating from there.
Because it's as much valuing yourself as recognizing the value that you are giving them.
Yeah. Well, to me, I almost think that part is even more important because there's a certain level of, you see two contrasting things. You've got people that undervalue themselves. Then you have people that think they're worth way more than what they actually are.
True.
And it's like, so you have to kind of look at it as like, what value are you to that brand at the same time? Because it's like, you know, if I'm creating you a set of images that's going to make you $10 million potentially, like off this product, and you're using my images as the main driver to make that money, well, that's worth more than if it's only going to make you $100,000.
Yeah.
And you have to take that into consideration as well, because that's part of the value of what you're bringing to the table.
Right.
And so it's like, it's this, that's not really complex, but it's just this whole factoring in of what you feel like you are worth, knowing what the industry standard is for that type of thing, and then knowing what it is that this brand is potentially looking at profiting off of this thing. And that's kind of this complex, how you figure out where to land at price point. And then from that point, you're usually negotiating, you know, because generally speaking, nobody's ever going to go the initial pitch. Very rarely do they just accept it.
If they do, you're too low.
Yeah, exactly. If they accept it right, you're already under the bar.
Or you just hit, I mean, you hit it on the nose, maybe.
You know, a lot of times you're probably under. Or if you've been with the brand for doing stuff for a while, then you know at that point maybe you've established the value with them where they're like, yeah, we'll pay that.
Yeah,
you know, but. I've had a few where it's like you throw a figure out and they're like, absolutely. And you're like, I totally understand that.
Great. I've lost some jobs because I pitched too low.
Yep. Well, and you'll notice that with the bigger the brand, or if you're dealing with ad agencies in particular, because they're used to like typical commercial
They just
rates.
realize you don't know what's up.
Yeah, you have no clue what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, and which is equally as damaging.
It is.
Sometimes,
no, it's more.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's more
I would
damaging
agree.
To lowball it, and then they realize, like, okay, I guess actually we're the biggest client this person's ever had.
Yeah.
We ain't going with them.
Yeah, not happening.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. But, and general, I'd say always bid high because you can always go down. You can't go back up once you.
And at bare minimum, you raise your price to adjust along with inflation every year.
Yes, yeah, you always got to factor that in because the cost of doing business is going up, every year, and so that's the part. It's like, like I mentioned earlier, like the shooting part. It's the easy part. Now, granted, there's a lot of bad photographers and cinematographers and filmmakers.
But once you get that nailed down,
that's
once
the
you get
easy
it nailed
part.
in.
From there, it's learning how to run a sustainable business. Because you have to factor in, one, you've got a cost to run a business, and then you've got to be profitable because, like us, you have a family to provide for. And so you've got to factor all of that in. And it's like, well, if you're just out there winging it, it's like, that's not going to sustain very long, And so, and
there's lots of schools of thought about how you price and what you do and everything like that. In the end, if you're still trying to figure out pricing, you need to figure that out because what we do in the creative industry is one of the few where you can get into it with no idea what you should be charging.
Yeah.
There's no other industry
and people don't really like to talk about it, which coming from the fire department world, that was weird for me because, we were paid for with tax dollars. Our salary was. Well, there was
which is public. So everybody knows what you're paying.
Well, so literally once a year, one of the newspapers would come out and list every City of High Point employee and their salary. So the whole world, and
very depressing.
From the way I understood it is like you could have called down to whoever and be like, "Hey, I'd like to know what Adam Mowery makes."
Oh, I did.
And you're like, "God, he is broke." But legally, from my understanding, I could be wrong in this, but they have to tell you because your salary is paid for via public tax dollars.
And I thought it's a reasonable salary, right? Like we're making fun of like the whole broke thing, but
no. We would, in the fire department, we would always joke, be like, let's be honest, for what we actually do, we get paid decent money and you have plenty of time off to do something else.
Because I came from kind of the same thing. I mean, teaching fourth grade for 5 years.
Yep.
I taught for a charter school, so that's public but privately funded.
Yep.
And for what I would run into people and they'd be like, "Man, teachers are not paid enough." Which, yes, I think probably on average that's true. There were some teachers that I have known that I think were overpaid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, and there were some teachers that lived and breathed everything for their kids. Like that teacher is criminally underpaid. And you see someone else like, they could probably take a pay cut for what they're doing with those kids.
They're literally just a butt in a seat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's, I think, that was a big change for me, suddenly realizing that actually what I do is merit-based.
Yeah.
And I could get better. And obviously there's raises for teachers and there's other incentives. And I think there should be a whole lot more of that element. But I'll tell you one thing that gets you nowhere in the real world is being in that industry for a longer amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, I've been at this company for so long, so I demand this raise.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually work like that. It is, if you've been in this industry for that long, then you should be that amount better than the person who's starting out.
Yeah.
And that was something you saw. I mean,
well, and what I noticed in the fire department world is like there's kind of a salary cap. So it's like the fire chief was like the top dog, and we knew his salary because it's tax dollars and we could all see it. And I'm just looking at that and I'm like, I think when I left, the salary was like $130,000 for the fire chief. And I'm thinking like, well,
how many chiefs are there?
Well, the actual fire chief he's the top dog. So then you got like deputy chiefs under him.
For the city or the county or wherever?
Yeah, for the city.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, first off, the chance of you as an individual ever being the one that becomes fire chief is slim to none. 2, that job is definitely not worth $130,000 just because of the amount of politics and stress involved with that. And I was like, even if you make it to that position, the most you're going to make is $130,000. Now, granted, over inflation, that'll go up some.
Sure.
But let's say $150,000 by the time I was eligible to ever even become chief, which I probably never would. It's like, all right, so the most you're ever going to make is $130,000 or
which
$150,000.
For a lot of people, that is a great,
and that's a great salary.
I think
that's good money.
That is a good salary.
Yeah, that's good money. But on the same sense, when you think about all the stress and the things he has to put up with, you're like, is it really worth that? And you're capped. Like that's the most it's ever going to be. Where it's like going out on your own and opening your own business, it's like, well, it's kind of unlimited. Like it's all in how much work you're willing to put into it and what you're now. Granted, there's many other variables that play a role into that, but it's like,
and a lot of businesses fail.
Yeah, a lot of businesses tank, and heck, I could tank tomorrow for all I know.
Probably will after this
probably
podcast.
will. Yep, it's going downhill quick.
Low point.
Good thing I don't have a mortgage right now. But it's just kind of like you look at it and weigh it, and it's like, man, the potential's unlimited on the outside. And granted, if some people do better in an environment where they can just show up and get a paycheck, and somebody else is dealing with all the other stuff, and it's like, hey, if that's you, hey, that's fine, not a problem. But I think people like me and you are just wired to, like, I'm just wired in I remember in the fire department, I had wanted out for so long, and I was just kind of in that mindset of like, success or failure is not an option. Like, it's just not. And confident in my ability enough to know, like, if given the opportunity, I can make this work.
Yeah. And you have.
Yeah. And like I said, it could all fall away tomorrow.
But you're not going to regret it still.
No, it's like at the end of the day, even if it fell apart tomorrow, at least I got 5 good years of like doing the thing that I'm passionate about and I love. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. I, to this day, outside of Mary and Elizabeth and accepting Jesus, I was like, that's probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And it was nerve-wracking as heck. I mean, you knew through all that, because it was just like, I'd wanted out of the fire department for so long. And then finally, when I felt like the good Lord was like, all right, now's the time. And I'm like, what do you mean now's the time? Like, I've got a retirement and insurance and a guaranteed paycheck. And then it's like, you're leaving. And like, I'm like, I've got a wife and 3 kids. And it's like, you sure about this? Is this a good idea? And even for the first probably 6 months after I left, it's still like, was this really a good idea?
Yeah.
And but now I look back and I'm like, man, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Yeah. Couldn't trade it for the world. And
which brings us all the way back to the very beginning.
Bum bum bum.
To cheers to what scares you.
Mm-hmm.
This is a year to do that. Well, Adam, it's been awesome having you. My brother-in-law is actually in town, and we're gonna go get lunch.
Party?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going over to Yama's.
Ooh, that's a good place. I hadn't been there in a while.
You can swing by.
Yeah.
Which stay, David?
Yeah. Otherwise, we'd be here till like 4.
We would.
Yeah. We could do like the classic Joe Rogan podcast that goes on for like
we don't
3
say
hours.
we don't say that name.
We could,
he who shall not be named.
He who shall not, the long format podcast.
Exactly. I was actually thinking I needed to bring in some whiskey, or you needed to bring in some whiskey for this.
Yeah, I've got some good stuff.
Next time we'll do something after 5, or at
You'll
least
be
after
invited
3.
back onto the podcast, and we'll have some meat.
Yeah.
Some meat and whiskey.
Meat
Talk
and
to me,
whiskey.
son.
Yeah,
Talk.
that should
I
definitely.
like that.
Nighttime podcast recording.
Yes.
It's going to be a long podcast.
But no gamey taste.
Seth will start slurring his words.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Then we'll know when to cut.
Well, Seth's on the floor.
Yeah.
I guess that's
he
it.
just passed out. Cut.
Awesome. Good seeing you, man.
It was good seeing you.